Men Zhaoran felt proud after hearing Wu Yunliang praise Chu Yang, but upon the words enough to compensate for all, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Eldest martial brother, you seem high-spirited. Even at this hour you're still in the mood to joke around. Why you rather have me crying? Even though Wu Yunliang was being facetious, his countenance was very serious. He slowly said, this Chu Yang, you need to cultivate him well. In our Beyond the Heavens sect, the number of people like him are too few. DLN, like, 0. Men Zhaoran nodded and said with a sigh, there's no other way. Since we no longer hold the title national sect of the great state of Zhao and suffered from a severe loss of power, no one in court supports us. Government officials treat us with discrimination and other large sects harass us. Any talented disciple, they could be stolen away or killed during competitions. Beyond the Heavens sect's destiny is very precarious. If we cannot protect the talents of the sect, then I am afraid that in our generation, Beyond the Heavens sect will cease to exist. Men Zhaoran's words included some very serious reminders and warnings. Upon Wu Yunliang's face there was a faint smile. He and Kong Jingfeng looked at each other. After, his wrinkled face slowly relaxed, he smiled and said, perhaps, you're afraid we would sell off your disciple? With a humph, Men Zhaoran said, you can't be too careful. Beyond the Heavens sect is not what it used to be. Wu Yunliang sighed and said, I know. So you guys are still dissatisfied with the ranking competition amongst the disciples in the sect. Indeed, Beyond the Heavens sect is currently on the decline. If we have a competition like this, distinguished disciples will be known to the enemies and they will be put in danger. However, it must be done. Men Zhaoran clasped his hands behind his back. I think you only want to maintain the archaic traditions of Beyond the Heavens sect. If you are determined not to change them, then we have nothing else to say. Men Zhaoran was usually a pacifist, but he had just said these harsh words. Wu Yunliang, who had been in the sect with him for decades, had never heard words like these before. At this point, Wu Yunliang suddenly realized that this junior martial brother was very dissatisfied. With a sigh, Wu Yunliang said severely, if I really wanted to change things, I only need to say so. But the reason I kept this old rule is because I wanted to cultivate pure metal from inside the fiery hell. Wu Yunliang cooled down. He slowly said, there are currently 800 disciples in the 8th generation of Beyond the Heavens sect, whereas our 7th generation currently only has 70 left. Of the masters from the 6th generation, there barely remain 10 people. As for the 5th generation, there is currently only one, the 9th martial great uncle. His face strained as he gritted his teeth. If my plans succeed, then of the 1,000 people of Beyond the Heavens sect, the ones who are capable of surviving will not exceed 100. These people will become the foundation for Beyond the Heavens sect to rise to its glorious peak. The useless need not be kept. The mediocre are not needed at all. Wu Yunliang took 2 slow steps and in a dreadful low voice, even I, Wu Yunliang, when sacrifice is needed, will sacrifice. A sect declining is not because of external pressure. It is due to internal disputes and lack of unity. Of this, our Beyond the Heavens sect is a perfect example. Wu Yunliang said cryptically, if a sect wants to rise, it has to go through blood and fire to be reborn. Men Zhaoran sighed, these outstanding disciples, if targeted by the enemies, then it is us who have pushed them into danger. But the same goes with countless things in life. Only in overcoming everything, can they become the pillars of the sect. Wu Yunliang said casually, if we cannot overcome and all get killed, then Beyond the Heavens sect will no longer exist. What I want is not to prolong that last breath, but to give our all in the final fight. Kong Jingfeng nodded, eldest martial brother is right. Better to have one glorious moment, than a waning 100 years. Men Zhaoran's pupils suddenly narrowed. Eldest martial brother, the decline of the sect is greatly related to the Zhao dynasty. But now you have plans to revive the sect. Perhaps? Exactly. Wu Yunliang said pensively, these past 10 years, whenever I was entered the sect, Then I was at Ironcloud Nation. The Zhao dynasty has always bullied us. What need do we have to cling to them? Great state what? There are no guarantees that it will always prosper and never fall. Men Zhaoran was shocked. But upon seeing Kong Jingfeng's calm countenance, he immediately understood that elder martial brother Kong already knew about this. Eldest martial brother, this is too dangerous. Men Zhaoran took a deep breath. His face still looked worried. Find fortune in danger. Wu Yunliang said blandly. The first time a sect needs to rise up is difficult but not impossible. Only, after succeeding, if it declines again, rising the second time will be much more difficult. We need to prepare carefully if the sect were to perish. Men Zhaoran sighed and did not say any more. 3 days ago, I dispatched 9th Junior Martial Brother along with Qian, Xu Yi, and Mu Shang, DLN, previously mentioned as the top 2 disciples on that list, to secretly go to Ironcloud Nation. First, to complete a task. Second, for them to have a chance to go into Jianghu and learn a bit. After hearing this, Kong Jingfeng became terrified. Eldest martial brother, how could you let Qian go like that? I thought you would certainly try to stop it if you knew, that's why I didn't tell you. Wu Yunliang replied casually. It has been 3 days. Even if you want to bring her back, you can't. Kong Jingfeng immediately raised his voice. I have no issue with 9th Junior Martial Brother bringing Xu Yi and Mu Shang, but why did you let Qian go along? This trip is very dangerous. Moreover, all the major sects are like tigers on the prowl for us. It's up to fate. Wu Yunliang said coldly. A few days ago, when you and I were talking about the female disciples of the sect, I had already thought about this. Now, let Qian go out there and hone her skills in Jianghu. Honing skills in Jianghu. Our Beyond the Heavens sect has many such female disciples. Those with beauty like Qian are not few. But why do you have to send Qian? Kong Jingfeng was livid. She is your daughter. She is my daughter. Then the other female disciples are without parents. Are they not precious to them? Wu Yunliang said, burdened. Should I pamper my daughter forever? Kong Jingfeng stomped his foot in indignation. His gaze became fiery as he stared at his elder martial brother. She's not just your daughter, she's our niece. You can't let her take such risks. Because she is my daughter, that's why she has to take the responsibility instead of other female disciples. Wu Yunliang said coldly. My daughter is not a precious princess. If she keeps hiding and let her martial sisters face danger, then I would rather not have this daughter. Beyond the Heavens sect is amidst boiling water and burning fire, and that fire is slowly growing. If we want to rise again, then we can't avoid paying a big price. No one can be an exception to this. Not you, nor I, not even my daughter. After he finished speaking, Wu Yunliang immediately turned around. His whole body stiffened. The 2 others could not see that his eyes were quivering. Let's hope Qian can return safely. I am a father, but I have heartlessly sent my daughter to carry out such dangerous duties. Is it possible that I am truly without feelings? But I am not only a father, I am the master of 1,000 disciples of Beyond the Heavens sect. When it is necessary, even if all must be sacrificed, it must be done. However, if only one person needs to be sacrificed, then let it be my daughter. Because I am the master of Beyond the Heavens sect. Wu Yunliang clenched his teeth. His jaw trembled and then returned to normal. He still did not turn around, but said in a slightly hoarse voice, Junior Martial Brother, you must teach Chu Yang well. That fleeting snow cloud movement technique. He paused and contemplated for a second, then calmly said, let him cultivate well. If there are any secrets to it, he can keep them to himself, or you both can hold on to them. But you must remember, no third party can know of them. Men Zhaoran pondered for a second, then said, shouldn't we teach it to the entire sect? If we teach this technique, the power of Beyond the Heavens sect could double. That would be my guess. Junior Martial Brother, you only see the benefit, but you cannot see the risks. The sect is not yet completely taken care of. There are too many spies. Letting the secrets be exposed means that we would not be the only ones who would be able to cultivate it. But this great skill would become an advantage for our enemies. Wu Yunliang said casually. So before everything is finished, we must absolutely never disclose this to the outside. Moreover, you must prepare a good technique for him to use to divert the enemy. Yes. Men Zhaoran understood. Wu Yunliang saying these words proved that the current situation of Beyond the Heavens sect has reached critical. It also demonstrated that his previous speculation was a bit too optimistic. Used to divert. Divert who? Currently no one from the outside knew about it. Only a few of Second Elder Martial Brothers' disciples knew, yet he still wanted to divert. Then, also, Chu Yang's 7 Shades Absolute Saint Palm. How did he cultivate the cold chi? This is extremely strange. But still, don't bother him about it. Wu Yunliang said thoughtfully. Let's wait until his cultivation reaches a higher level, then we will let him enter 7 Shades congregation grounds and increase his cultivation further. This disciple of mine, even though his talent reaches the heavens, but currently his martial strength is still very low. We should not use him just yet. I need to evaluate everything first. Men Zhaoran replied as if still in thought. Junior Martial Brother Meng, I had previously planned that your disciple Shiqian Shan would be a suitable choice with his thorough planning. But now it seems Shiqian Shan cannot be used. However, Chu Yang. Wu Yunliang smiled. We could use him. Use? Men Zhaoran's eyebrow rose. His gaze became sharp. Currently, we do not have any resources inside Iron Cloud Nation. Our sect needs to have someone to secretly set roots. Wu Yunliang said quietly. After Chu Yang's performance today, there is no doubt that he is an appropriate choice. How about we send him as a delegate? Men Zhaoran was astonished and did not speak for a long time. Eventually he said, there is no doubt that this is a good opportunity, but it is also a dangerous road. Countries like Iron Cloud have countless martial experts. Once discovered, we would be flooded with disaster. Chu Yang is still too young. I hope eldest martial brother will rethink this carefully. How could you become a talent without weathering through a storm? Wu Yunliang said, always living at the boundary between life and death and struggling in extreme danger. That's how you become a character in the realm of mountains and clouds. Furthermore, I can guarantee you, other disciples might be exposed, but Chu Yang will certainly not. When he finished talking, he glanced at Kongjing Feng. The two bid Men Zhaoran goodbye and left. As the two silhouettes disappeared from sight, Men Zhaoran stood sadly in front of Purple Bamboo Garden. At a glance, his countenance seemed somber. Men Zhaoran sighed. He muttered, eldest martial brother, there are some things that cannot be achieved with the strength of a sect like ours. 2 countries in conflict, our Beyond the Heavens sect is just so little. What can we do? We were forced to take risks, but placing all hope into a single door is unthinkable. Just one mistake and bones will be crushed. Flesh will be melted. Too much planning and things will fall apart. Beyond the Heavens sect is currently in no condition to withstand such a shake-up. Men Zhaoran had a vague feeling as if the whole world was being lifted by a huge vortex and Beyond the Heavens sect sat in the center of it. It could be destroyed at any moment. And this vortex was actually fueled time and time again by Beyond the Heavens sect itself, even going as far as using its full force to help it. The lower 3 heavens stretched for trillions of miles. At its center, there were 3 countries. Going further out, you would be away from all the fighting. Among these 3 countries, the great state of Zhao truly lived up to its name. It had the largest territory. Its national strength was enormous, its people prosperous. It was also taking steps to expand its border on all sides with dreams of uniting all under the heavens. The 2 other countries were Iron Cloud Nation and Limitless Nation. These 2 countries, despite having powerful forces, were much weaker compared to the great state of Zhao. They were also the prey much coveted by the great state of Zhao. Recently, boundary struggles broke out continually at the borders of the 3 countries. At this point, in the capital of Iron Cloud Nation, Iron Cloud City, there were 4 fatigued riders at the city gate, 1 middle-aged person, 2 young men and a young woman wearing a black silk mask. On their bodies, there were blood stains. They looked at each other and the middle-aged person exhaled a long sigh and said, we are finally here. Kian, are you okay? He spoke as if a heavy weight had been lifted. I am fine, said Wu Kian. her voice exposing her weariness. "We were attacked more often this time. Our whereabouts were kept secret. I don't understand what happened. Something is amiss." This middle-aged man was the head of the ninth peak of Beyond the Heavens sect, stepping on the clouds peak. Bao Qiangl. Bao. This was a relatively rare surname meaning violent. Bao Qiangl was a bold and true character comparable to Wu Yunliang. While he took careful measure in his work, he was not afraid to take risks. He was so meticulous in dealing with matters that not a drop of water could escape him. The name Bao did not seem to suit him. "Regardless, we're finally here." Wu Qian smiled. The four glanced at each other, sharing the same unspoken thoughts. There must be a spy within the sect. Moreover, the position of the spy was probably not low. "Let's enter the city." Bao Qiangl carried a sad countenance, but it became immediately uplifted as he stretched out his arms. The group entered into the city, turning left and right, here and there for quite a while before reaching a vast official-looking building with a silver plaque on top. 3 golden words were carved on it: 1,000 autumns manor, TLN, 1,000 autumns literally, but basically means forever. 1,000 autumns manor was the home of the Prince of Iron Cloud Nation. The Royal Prince of Iron Cloud Nation lives here. DLN, yes, the author did get paid by the word. After being announced, the four advanced into 1,000 autumns manor. Under the guidance of a servant, they arrived at the main hall. In the middle of the hall was a luxurious chair. A youth carrying an aura like precious jade, wearing a soft, yellow outfit, was reading intently. His long brows reached his hairline. His face was like a pearl, and upon his head of black hair, a crown sat prominently. At a glance, this youth looked a little thin, weak, and perhaps even timid to others. But if you looked closely at the effortless way he was holding his book, then you would notice that there was an extreme stability to the pose. His face was gentle and calm, even effeminate to the point that it made people want to protect him. Once you approached this youth, there was a sense as if you were standing in front of the moon, so lofty and high beyond reach. It seemed as if power over all lives under the heavens were in those steady thin hands. After hearing the introduction by the servant, this youth put his book down and slowly lifted his head to look at the four people. His face revealed a smile, like a spring breeze that dispels the winter snow, and spoke peacefully. "You have had to travel a long journey to be my guests. Please sit down." Bao Qiangl immediately said, "Thank you, Your Highness." Then he and the 3 disciples sat down on the side. This youth was the Prince of Iron Cloud Nation, Taibudan. In this moment, his eyes flashed over the 4 people. He suddenly smiled, his brows rose, and he said casually, "It seems you did not have a comfortable trip." "You are correct. It was full of slaughter and danger." Bao Qiangl answered calmly. They were people of the sect and did not belong to the court. When speaking to the prince, they did not need to bow or conduct themselves ceremoniously. However, Xu Meng and Qin Mu Shang were somewhat tense. "Ha ha. It seems that someone had secretly taken action." Tai Butan smiled blandly. His eyes, like his laughter that slowly trailed off, slowly narrowed. He put his palms together and said slowly, "Please rest assured that nothing like that will happen in Iron Cloud Nation, not even once." Even though his physique was thin and frail and he was not very tall, when he put his palms together, he stood up and his cold gaze swept the horizon with the air of one who could command all under heaven. As if, just by standing up, he could bring all things to his feet. Bao Qiangl was shocked. He finally understood his eldest martial brother's decision. Just looking at the prince's aura when he stood up was enough to confirm that he was going to become a legendary hero. "You should stay here for now. Early tomorrow morning, I will inform my father personally. If he agrees, then we will proceed immediately." Tai Butan smiled. Earlier his appearance was like a sword emitting an aura of arrogance. But after the smile, his whole demeanor suddenly became gentle and intimate, making others feel as if they were being bathed in the spring breeze. He did not need to do any tricks to sway people's hearts. His speaking naturally was enough to make all those who come into contact with him feel regret that they were not in his service. Yes. Bao Qiangl shivered. He could not help but re-evaluate this prince at a higher level. Despite his age, he was not simple. Since his birth until now, Bao Qiangl had met many different kinds of people. However, he has yet to meet anyone who could compare to this prince. It was clear why people praised him as the #1 heaven-sent talent of the lower three heavens of all time. Before meeting Tibetan, Bao Qiang did not pay attention to those praises. In life, how can there be such a thing as a heaven-sent talent? It's only good upbringing and receiving better training than normal people. If you learn to rule from infancy, over time, your aura will certainly be above normal. As for #1 heaven-sent talent, there is no lack of heaven-sent talents in this world. However, at this time, he believed, from the elegance that seemed seeped to the bones to the majesty that seemed to radiate from the soul, every action, from the lifting of the hands to the stretching of the legs, was so natural and exuded regalness that it made a Jianghu person like Bao Qiang tremble in his soul. Beyond the heavens sect's purple bamboo garden. Next morning, Dantian, laying on the ground with arms and legs outstretched, panted and exclaimed, "Chu Yang, I admit you are much more handsome than me. But these past few days, you have been really cruel. You are working me to death." These days Chu Yang just wanted to cultivate, so he forced Dantian to go along with him, making him practically die from exhaustion. Therefore, only after a few days, every time Dantian saw Chu Yang, he would shake uncontrollably from fear. With every session, Chu Yang calculated very carefully. He knew exactly how long it would take before Dantian's body reached its extreme limits. So after each time, even though Dantian could barely stand up, his body was not in any danger. Every time Dantian saw Chu Yang, it was as if he had run into a demon. Previously, he was in the habit of bragging and self-admiration. But currently he didn't even have time for self-admiration. Chu Yang took a deep breath, pulled in his energy and stood up. In the past 20 days, he did not let his cultivation lapse for even a little. His cultivation has already reached 9th grade martial pupil, just a little more and he would enter the rank of martial warrior. Feeling all the transformations inside him, Chu Yang smiled. Only when he advanced to the rank of martial warrior could he begin to officially train his body. If his strength had not reached martial warrior level and he forcefully practiced excessive physical exercises, then his muscles and internal organs would be severely compromised. There was a saying in the lower three heavens, "Literature lasts for eternity, martial artist retires at death." This implied that those who practice martial arts usually do not live past 60 years. However, this lesson seemed to be not right, because while this saying basically valued literature over martial arts, the number 60 was just a haphazard guess. The truth was, every year, there were countless martial pupils who wanted to improve their skills by cultivating carelessly. But this ends up consuming a lot of their strength and results in extreme fatigue that was unbearable to the body of a martial pupil. Even if they advance in skill, that fatigue was permanent in their body. When they are about 50 years old, this fatigue will manifest itself intensively and it would be too late to do anything because the body would be ravaged beyond repair. Therefore, martial artists always wasted the most time in the training the body, setting a solid foundation at this martial pupil level. Just a little bit more and he would become a martial warrior, then he will have the requirements to cultivate Nine Tribulations Sword, Nine Tribulations Transcending the Nine Heavens technique. And not just Nine Tribulations Sword, but there were techniques in the middle three heavens that clearly stated those below the rank of martial warrior cannot cultivate. Chu Yang's Dantian stirred. He had struggled from dawn to noon to cultivate a little chi for the Nine Tribulations Sword spirit to absorb. A moment later, it released that chi. Even though the amount of chi was much smaller, it was extremely pure. Although, this chi could not compare to natural chi, but in terms of purity it was many times better. When compared to the normally absorbed chi, the difference was heaven and earth. It was much better. These days, after each cultivation, as his martial power increased, Chu Yang felt the sword spirit stir quietly inside of him. He thought nothing of it, and gradually ignored it altogether. What worried him most during this time was the pure purple jade essence around his neck, which was unreactive. When it came to this pure purple jade essence, Chu Yang could not find a solution. The first time he had wanted to use this pure purple jade essence to restore his energy, before he could, the Nine Tribulations Sword spirit suddenly became disturbed from inside his Dantian and cut off contact completely. Chu Yang tried again a few times but to no avail. It was obvious that the Nine Tribulations Sword spirit wanted him to rely on his own strength to cultivate, not any external sources. Even when he used the jade to recover energy to fight against a rival, it didn't matter to Nine Tribulations Sword spirit, it still wouldn't let him. Before, he was able to use the jade essence once, in coping with Ping. At that time, the Nine Tribulations Sword spirit had no reaction, but since that battle, it would not let him do it again. Encountering an impartial monitor like this, Chu Yang had no choice but to oblige. Eventually he extinguished any intention of using the pure purple jade essence during cultivation. Tilting his head, Chu Yang looked at struggling form of Dantian. He almost laughed. He said, "Okay, you can rest a little." Hearing these words, Dantian felt as if he was given a privilege. He was so grateful he almost shed tears. He got up with some difficulty. His arms and legs looked as if they were trying to crawl. When he finally got up, he let out a sigh of relief. In the yard, Chu Yang continued to practice the simple action of drawing and sheathing the sword. Even though this was extremely boring, he was attentive to every little action and tried hard until every action was skillfully trained. At this time, from the east, the sun had slowly shown itself, making Chu Yang's whole body heat up. Drops of sweat constantly fell down, soaking the ground. When Dantian finally recovered, he turned to look at Chu Yang practicing. When Dantian saw Chu Yang's movements, he slowly noticed a strange point. Even though Chu Yang repeated the same actions hundreds of times, each time Chu Yang's movement had a tiny difference. It seemed that Chu Yang was continuously adjusting, from the beginning, where his actions seemed a little unnatural, to later when they became more fluid and finally they seemed to have become a flash of light. Drawing the sword, sheathing the sword, he continued like that until the sound became softer and softer each time. Although it was not obvious, the sounds truly became slightly softer each time. "Chu Yang, your arm is swollen." Dantian was looking at Chu Yang practicing and admiring him, when he suddenly discovered that between Chu Yang's elbow and shoulder, there was an abnormal swollen mass. He shouted out in panic. However, Chu Yang's countenance remained unconcerned as if nothing has happened and his movement did not stop. He said indifferently, "It's nothing. It will go away with more training. If I stop now and wait for it go down, then it would take a long time. The best way is to practice until you get used to it. Then this swelling will go away on its own. That's how you can advance." Oh. Chu Yang's words made Dantian feel ashamed. He could only stand there stupefied. Then seeing that he had restored some energy, he immediately resumed practice. In a corner of purple bamboo forest, Men Jiaoran was quietly watching the two practice. The edge of his mouth revealed a little smile. Meanwhile, a constant moan could be heard from inside. It was the sound of Qian Shan tormented by pain. He had been bedridden for the past 20 days. Ping's people were cruel. That day they had broken Qian Shan's ribs and femur. At least for the next 3 months, Qian Shan would not be able to practice. And in the next half year, he would not be able to use his martial arts. But ranking competition for disciples of Beyond the Heavens sect will probably be done by then. This injury will undoubtedly destroy all of Qian Shan's plans at Beyond the Heavens sect. The physical pain did not compare to the mental anguish that Qian Shan felt. But the bizarre thing is, he did not hate the people who hurt him, he hated Chu Yang. In Qian Shan's mind, if it were not for Chu Yang, he would have had a bright future. DLN, again a common saying meaning that someone is devious and unscrupulous at heart. It can't be left unsaid that what Qian Shan felt was correct. All the misery he currently suffered was single-handedly caused by Chu Yang. During this period, Chu Yang meticulously took care of Qian Shan, checking on him once a day. Eldest martial brother, how are you? Today, I have advanced beyond 5th grade martial pupil. Eldest martial brother. Today, I had broken past the 6th grade. I have achieved 7th grade. Every good news made Qian Shan felt as if he was being pierced by 1,000 arrows. He became very upset, making his recovery very slow. It even worsened. However, The thing that Qianshan should not have done was let his hatred for Chu Yang spread to Meng Jiaoran and Dantian as well. This hatred was seeped to the bones. How could Chu Yang have advanced so fast? It certainly must have been a favor from Meng Jiaoran. The master must have had some sort of elixir to speed up cultivation. I have been with him for so many years and he didn't give it to me. Instead he gave it to Chu Yang. That must be it. The hatred in Qianshan's heart gradually grew more severe, until it became immeasurable. In the days that followed, even though his attitude was indifferent, Meng Jiaoran took a lot of care with Qianshan. He did not hesitate to waste his energy to heal Qianshan's meridians as well as help reduce his pain. Furthermore, he spared no effort in searching for medicine to help Qianshan recover. However, Qianshan has allowed his hatred to cloud his judgment. He went as far as grinding his teeth with the master who had given him so much. So, Qianshan wanted revenge. Outside of Qianshan's room, there was a small pond, approximately the size of half a room and deeper than a meter. Water flowing from the peak go through here before continuing downward, making a winding stream through the mountains. The water in this pond was so clear, you could see the bottom. Every day Chu Yang and the others drank water from here. Currently Qianshan was trying to get up from his bed. He then stealthily took out a paper parcel from under his bed. This was before dawn soul scattering powder. This was mixture of 5 highly toxic poisons, without color or taste. But mostly important, without antidote. When mixed with food, they become a wonderful tasting additive that stimulates your appetite. Qianshan's lips were trembling and even his fingers were shaking. However, he remained steadfast in his resolve. He reached for the candle next to his bed. With his right hand he broke off part of the candle. His face seemed alternate between red and white, as if his heart was under a lot of conflict. However, his hands did not stop. He emptied the entire parcel of poison into a newly formed wax pellet. Afterwards, he hid everything under the blanket. If I am like this, you people shall not live well either. Anyway, I am so heavily wounded, even if everyone here was dead, no one would suspect me. If Purple Bamboo Garden has only me left, then the sect master would surely show some preferential treatment. That way I would still have a chance. Even if I can no longer lean on Meng Jiaoran, I can still succeed. Die. You can all die. At this point, Qianshan had apparently entered a state of frenzy. The sun slowly rose to its peak. Qianshan listened, then clenched his teeth. A small container flew straight outside from his hand. Plop. It dropped into the pond. Qianshan breathed a sigh of relief. He slumped in his bed. There was a look of anxiousness as well as shame in his eyes. But immediately after, he became crazed. He gritted his teeth. His hands gripped tightly onto the blanket, tearing a hole in it. Disquiet. A moment later, he finally relaxed. A smile appeared on his mouth revealing pleasure and satisfaction. The water in the pond flowed constantly. If the poison was released directly, then its effect would fade. However, if it were placed in a wax container, it would release more slowing. Based on the daily meal time, this moment was perfect. He calculated the time carefully. After about a second, there was a creaky sound. It was the sound of the 2 wooden buckets that Dantian used to carry water. Qianshan immediately went back under his blanket, closed his eyes and moaned. After a while, the clacking sound of pots and pans were heard, followed by Dantian's monstrous singing. Finally, the fragrant smell food arose. Qianshan smiled evilly. The 3, Meng Jiaoran, Dantian, and Chu Yang, sat around the dining table looking at aromatic food. Dantian's puppy dog eyes was currently looking at his master, but his stomach was growling. He was waiting for Meng Jiaoran to open his mouth, then he would attack the food. However, when Meng Jiaoran looked at the food, he frowned. The food today did not seem like normal. The smell was much stronger, almost excessively fragrant. There was something strange. He felt that something was not right. Meng Jiaoran was in deep thought. He picked up his chopsticks, just to put them down again. He tilted his head and looked over at Chu Yang. It seemed that Chu Yang was also staring at the food on the table and thinking about something. Men Jiaoran was surprised. The reason he found the food strange was due to his decades of experience in Jianghu, in addition to his careful personality and heightened senses born from countless dangerous encounters. If it were normal people, then they would not have noticed any anomalies in the fragrant smell of the food. It's likely that they would want to eat it even more. But how could Chu Yang realize this? He was only 16 years old. Moreover, he had never been outside of the sect. How could he have such keen perception? Dantian, did you make this food? Chu Yang calmly smiled and asked. That's right, let's eat everyone. It smells so good. I can't wait any longer. Dantian begged pitifully. Chu Yang seemed to have figured out something as he looked at the rippling water in the small pond outside. With a flick of his wrist, there appeared a small black jade pin in his hand. He poked it into a soup dish on the table. It immediately changed to a frightful purple-blue color. Dantian's color changed immediately. He almost screamed out loud, as if he already knew Dantian's reaction without even looking at him. Chu Yang covered Dantian's mouth with his hand. His gaze did not leave from the food on the table. He said in a serious voice, Dantian is not capable of poisoning us. The problem is in the pond water. Men Jiaoran was shocked, because he also just thought of the same thing. Dantian was the cook, but he was not the poisoner. After all, he took care of Dantian since he was little. Dantian never had any exposure with poisons. How could he have done it? Men Jiaoran took a deep breath. Suddenly, there was anger in his face as he turned his head and looked straight at Shi Qianshan's room. Let me go. Chu Yang said quietly. You? What do you plan to do? Men Jiaoran's countenance was unsightly. Basically, I plan to satisfy him, Chu Yang said casually. Men Jiaoran's eyes narrowed. With a slight laugh, he said, in that case, you should go then. After a pause, he continued, don't say too much. Let him have a chance to explain himself. It's possible he doesn't know the extent of his actions. His voice was very soft, but within it, there was bitterness and fatigue. No matter what, Shi Qianshan was still his disciple for the past 7-8 years. Chu Yang wanted to help him handle this matter because he understood Men Jiaoran's dilemma. Men Jiaoran was currently furious. But inversely, Chu Yang completely understood him and felt very happy. Chu Yang nodded. He carried the tray of food that was previously prepared for Shi Qianshan. When he arrived in front of Shi Qianshan's room, he smiled slightly and said, eldest martial brother, it's time to eat. Doesn't Dantian always bring my food? Why is it you today? Shi Qianshan asked, looking suspiciously at Chu Yang. That Dantian is so tired today. He couldn't even get up. Chu Yang smiled warmly and said, we are all brothers, Dantian or me, what difference does it make? You have helped us so much with such deep love and care. I thought I should at least do something to repay you. Shi Qianshan answered in agreement. My appetite is not so good today, I don't want to eat. Just leave it right there. What a joke. He clearly knew there was poison in the food. It was his own doing. How would he dare eat it? Outside, Men Jiaoran was concentrating all his energy to listen to everything being said in that room. When he heard Shi Qianshan saying that, he could not help but snort. He still could not imagine that his disciple of 7-8 years now wanted to kill him. Even though everything was already clear, he still told Chu Yang to give Shi Qianshan a chance to explain himself. Still holding on to a ray of hope. However, after hearing Shi Qianshan, he has lost all hope. With a big grin, Chu Yang asked, how could you not eat? The body is iron and rice is steel, dear Len. Another saying, people can't function on an empty stomach. Plus you are wounded, you need nutrition to recover quickly. Eldest martial brother, you must eat at least a little bit. If you finish the whole thing, I am sure you would feel better. Shi Qianshan frowned and said in a disgusted tone, I already told you, I won't eat. Just get out. Why not? Is the poison in there? Chu Yang said sincerely, eldest martial brother, we have been brothers for many years. Is it possible that you believe that I would poison you? Hurry up and eat. Shi Qianshan's face slowly changed colors. Chu Yang's words were aimed directly at him. He immediately lifted his head and looked at Chu Yang. He asked in a serious voice, What are you trying to say? I am trying to tell you to eat. After that, you will understand. Chu Yang looked at him. His gaze slowly turned cold. He continued slowly, I wanted to see if the poison in the food can kill or not. Honestly, I am very curious about that. Shi Qianshan's heart suddenly sank. What kind of joke is this? Chu Yang smirked. What? You're not having any fun with this game? Shall we move on to a new game then? Chu Yang immediately took a bowl of rice to the bed and sat down on Shi Qianshan's legs. A crack was heard as the healing bones broke once again. Shi Qianshan screamed in pain as his body contorted like a shrimp. Sweat drops the size of soybeans streamed down his face. The moment his mouth opened, Chu Yang stuffed it with a bit of the blanket. Chu Yang's action was agile and decisive. Someone with many decades of experience could not have carried out an action so fluidly. Shi Qian's anguished screams immediately turned into smothered chokes. With no way of coming out, he could do nothing except stare at Chu Yang fearfully and shake his head repeatedly. At this time, sweat was pouring like rain from all over Shi Qianshan's body. With one hand holding the rice bowl, Chu Yang clutched Shi Qianshan's neck with the other. He looked coldly at Shi Qianshan and said, Shi Qianshan, I didn't want to kill you so early, I had hardly vented enough. However, today, your actions have pushed me beyond my limits. With his mouth muzzled, no matter how Shi Qianshan tried to yell and scream, he could only emit a few throaty oh. His eyes were filled with resentment and fear. He tried to struggle in a last-ditch effort, rendering himself even more pained due to his wounds. Shi Qianshan, the way you treated Dantian and I these past years. Let's not even mention that now. 8 years ago, your family was robbed by bandits, their lives were hanging by a thread, and your sister was almost assaulted by them. It was Master who appeared in time to save your family. Afterward, it was your family who begged Master to take you as a disciple. Master thought you seemed like a decent person and took you in and taught you martial arts. But now, not only do you not appreciate his kindness, you dare to use poison to try to kill him. Are you even human? Chu Yang reprimanded. You are indeed wolf's heart and dog's lung. There was shame in Shi Qianshan's eyes, but it disappeared immediately. He violently looked at Chu Yang as if wanting to eat him alive. Of course, there was no repentance at all. Suddenly Shi Qianshan let out a dry cough. A clump of fresh blood flew out from his mouth. The force was so strong that the bit of blanket stuffed in his mouth came out as well. The fresh blood splashed on the blanket forming patchy streaks. Shi Qianshan did not make a sound from the suffering. Instead his eyes glared at Chu Yang. Chu Yang, don't pretend in front of me. It's useless. Those little tricks, I stopped using them a long time ago. Shi Qianshan had another dry cough, and despite the fact that blood was continually running from the edge of his mouth, he said resentfully, I am an ingrate, so what? I wanted to kill you all, so what? I have a burning ambition, wolf's heart and dog's lungs, so what? Shi Qianshan panted, his chest heaving. If it wasn't for you, then I wouldn't have been beaten to the brink of death. If my legs were not broken, then I would not lose a chance to participate in the sect's ranking competition. If I did not lose that chance, then my future would not be so dark. Everything is because of you, Chu Yang. You and I will not share the same sky. As for Master, ha ha ha. Shi Qianshan wiped the dried blood from the corner of his mouth and let out a cold laugh. You think Men Jiaoran is really that kind? Why did he save my family that year? Was it not because he was mesmerized by my sister's beauty? If I did not discover in time and immediately married her off to somebody else, then she would have fallen into his hands. Normally he acts as if he is honorable, but on the inside, he is a scoundrel. Sometimes, at night, he keeps cold. Choo Choo. Choo Choo. He thought I couldn't hear. Choo Choo is my sister's nickname. He is truly a scoundrel. It seemed that Shi Qianshan knew that after what he did today, he could hardly escape death. So he brought out all the resentment that was in his heart. In the dining room next door, after hearing these words, Men Jiaoran's whole body trembled. His face gradually grew pale. Crack! The teacup in Men Jiaoran's hand shattered. The little broken pieces dropped down from the cracks of his fingers. Suddenly, Men Jiaoran's hair stood on end. He let out a single breath, which flew towards the door and surprisingly created a big hole. Ha ha ha, I got it right then. This old man. What greatness, what generosity. Ha ha ha. Shi Qianshan laughed insanely. Chu Yang roared loudly and rushed forward to attack Shi Qianshan. Pow! walkthejianghu.com. Before Chu Yang's palm was even lowered, the wall separating the two rooms broke, scattering dust everywhere. Men Jiaoran rushed into the room and grabbed Chu Yang's wrist. Knowing that Chu Yang would not be able to control himself, he took this direct action. Old man, you wanted to say something else? When Shi Qianshan saw Men Jiaoran, his body cringed instinctively. Only his talk sounded aggressive. Men Jiaoran slowly let go of Chu Yang. He took a few breaths and quickly recovered. His eyes looked at Shi Qianshan without sympathy. He said slowly, Shi Qianshan, from this moment, you are expelled from the sect. Shi Qianshan laughed loudly. Oh, Men Jiaoran, you think at this point I still need to be your disciple? I spit on it. Men Jiaoran's gaze became colder, but he continued to speak calmly. Shi Qianshan, your sister was quite pretty, but not to the point where I, Men Jiaoran, would remember forever. With a laugh, Shi Qianshan mocked, then why did you call my sister's name in your sleep? Are you crazy? Men Jiaoran's eyes flashed with anger, but that anger was immediately replaced with pity. That was not your sister's name. I am 48 this year. 8 years ago I was 40. Your sister was only 15. Even though she was not bad looking, I, Men Jiaoran, would never stoop that low. Men Jiaoran laughed dryly. I did call Chu. Not your Chu. Yi Chu Chen, that was my love, my wife. We have been separated for 20 years now. There's never been a moment when I don't think about her. Men Jiaoran said coldly, actually, the reason I saved your family that year was because her name and your sister's name sounded the same. Otherwise, Jiang, who was full of the strong bullying the weak, I, Men Jiaoran, was never interested in interfering in the affairs of others. Men Jiaoran's words made Shi Qianshan choke. He was speechless. In this moment, everything became clear. No wonder the master's voice became strange every time he mentioned that name. So, it was not his sister's name. Suddenly, Shi Qianshan felt very sorry. He went through many years untrusting and embracing hatred, but as it turned out, it was all a misunderstanding. Men Jiaoran took a deep breath and said casually, the reason I am telling you everything is not for your sake. Let's just call this my farewell to you. Men Jiaoran's words seemed contradictory, but Chu Yang, who stood on the side, understood. This was Men Jiaoran explaining to Chu Yang. He did not want his disciple to misunderstand him, nor did want others to misunderstand the precious love in his heart. Because of this, he needed someone to be a witness. So many years have gone by, but nothing could sway the love that was in Men Jiaoran's heart. This time, Shi Qianshan had awakened the Men Jiaoran's deepest suffering. Shi Qianshan's countenance shifted. He cried out, Master, I was wrong. I was confused. I deserve to die. Please forgive me. It's too late. In this life, there are some mistakes you should not make. And if you make them, then you will have to pay with your life. Men Jiaoran shook his head coldly and slowly stretched out a hand. His gaze was calm and resolute. He ignored Shi Qianshan's pleas for forgiveness. He was determined to eliminate any future problems. Chu Yang's hands and eyes were agile, quicker than Men Jiaoran. He palmed Shi Qianshan in the chest. Only a pow was heard and the bones around Shi Qianshan's chest shattered into pieces. His body jerked up. His eyes widened, and blood foamed from his ears, nose and mouth. In a few breaths, his body went limp and he stopped breathing. Ah? Men Jiaoran looked at Chu Yang. He immediately understood Chu Yang's intention and let out a sigh. Master, it was better for me to do it. He has bullied us for years. This was a chance for me to vent my anger. Chu Yang said calmly. Men Jiaoran took a look thoughtfully at him and patted him on the shoulder. He wanted to say something to Chu Yang, but in the end, he just quietly walked out. With Men Jiaoran's personality, if he had to kill a disciple he raised for 8 years by his own hand, then he would be plagued by it forever. However, if it was by Chu Yang's hand, then, even though Shi Qianshan still died in front of him, it was still not by his own hand and he would be less burdened. Chu Yang's intentions. How could Meng Jiaoran not know? Chu Yang sighed. He looked at Shi Qianshan, unable to hold back his resentments. He said, dying so easily. That was too comfortable for you. These words were not exaggerated. If Meng Jiaoran had not suddenly come in, then Chu Yang's tactics in combination with the hatred accumulated from 2 lifetimes would certainly have made Shi Qianshan no longer want to live. Chu Yang finally understood why Meng Jiaoran named him so. First, because of the word Chu from that jade pendant. Second, because of the word Chu from Yi Chu Chen. Chu Yang. Did it not sound the sun's early morning light? Chu Chen, did that not have a similar meaning as well? The Dan in Tan Dan. Did it not carry the meaning of fleeting beauty? DLN. It was actually a whole phrase referencing a flower called Dan Hua, Queen of the Night, which blooms rarely and only at night. Was this not Meng Jiaoran expressing his lamentation for his short-lived love? Chu Yang suddenly understood the immense suffering that his master carried in his heart. For people, the most difficult things to deal with are separation in life and parting in death. The words separation in life were first, because compared to parting in death, it was much more difficult. Parting in death was only temporary discomfort, but in living, one was tormented for life. A person only had to be alive for the pain to become engraved deep inside and to be tortured without end. Yi Chu Chen. Chu Yang quietly noted. Staring in Meng Jiaoran's direction, he thought, Master, I will remember this name. Looking back at Shi Qianshan corpse with his eyes rolled back, after a long silence, conflicting emotions emerged in Chu Yang. He finally came to a realization. He, himself, have transformed the lives of others. In the previous life, Shi Qianshan would have lived for another 4 years. However, after no more than a month in this second life, he has died by Chu Yang's hands. After a moment of silence, Chu Yang covered the body with a blanket and leisurely carried it outside. When everything was taken care of, Chu Yang discovered something surprising. During the course of this event, Dantian had prepared another meal and had set it out on the table, still steaming hot. Even more surprising was the fact that Meng Jiaoran, instead of disappearing, was quietly sitting at the table as if waiting for Chu Yang. Everything was just like any other day. As Chu Yang entered, Dantian asked shakily, that eldest martial brother. Shi Qianshan. He died. I killed him. Chu Yang said calmly, then sat down. With a nod, Dantian kept his head down and suddenly losing his appetite. When he heard the things Shi Qianshan said earlier, he thought death was not enough for him. However, he now still felt an inexplicable feeling of loss. Regardless of everything, they still lived together for many years. Plus, until today, Dantian did not discover Shi Qianshan's true nature. With a serious face, Meng Jiaoran picked up his chopsticks and said, let's eat. His gaze was calm as if the earlier event never occurred and Purple Bamboo Garden never had a disciple named Shi Qianshan. The three were quiet. The air around them was heavy with tension nearing breaking point. Chu Yang did not add anything else. Meng Jiaoran did not need any consolation. Even though he did feel some regrets, it was not something he cannot get over in a couple of days. The only thing was, before dying, Shi Qianshan spoke those words that renewed the pain deep inside Meng Jiaoran's heart. This pain will probably continue to torment him for a long time. When Meng Jiaoran was done eating, he saw that Chu Yang was eating voraciously. He could not help but grinned and said, Chu Yan, was this really the first time you killed someone? As I recalled, you have not even killed a chicken before. Stupefied, Chu Yang answered, yes. At this moment, he realized that he was too calm after killing someone. In the eyes of an experienced person like Meng Jiaoran, this extraordinary reaction was questionable. Whether it was a martial artist or an evil person with countless crimes, after killing for the first time, there should be a reaction of some sort. Yet Chu Yang has just killed a person for the first time, his eldest martial brother of 8 years, and he could still eat well as if nothing has happened. How could this not unnerve others? Your mind is extremely fortified. It's as if you are a natural-born killer. Men Zhaoran smiled as he talked. Suddenly he remembered Wu Yanliang's proposal. He realized sending Chu Yang on that dangerous mission might not be so unreasonable. This calmness was to the point of extreme. If he were sent on the mission, he would absolutely not reveal any flaws. Only, Men Zhaoran was still worried about his disciple, so his thoughts were conflicted. This would be an opportunity or it could be a perilous path. DLN, Chinese saying again, 9 deaths, 1 life. Natural-born killer. Chu Yang laughed inwardly. He thought to himself, even though it was my first time in this life, in my previous life, I have sent thousands of souls to rest. Can it really still be considered a cold-blooded reaction? My heart was dead a long time ago. Killing a man, strangely enough, was no different than killing a chicken. Even with death, Shi Qianshan did not pay for all his sins. Disciple killed him was simply a matter doling out justice. There was no pressure or reservation, plus it was my pleasure. Chu Yang answered. Men Zhaoran looked at him and suddenly smiled. He simply said, very good. In the blink of an eye, 3 days have passed. That night, Chu Yang was sitting alone in the depths of purple bamboo forest, feeling the energy of heaven and earth. He had a feeling that today would be the day he would have a breakthrough in his cultivation and enter into the level of martial warrior. Since the day he killed Shi Qianshan, a violent force buried deep inside him had awakened. Chu Yang also felt a frightening aura fluctuate wildly in his Dantian, as if a bloodthirsty emotion had awakened and was struggling and howling from inside him. This was the cruelty ingrained in his soul from practicing sword arts without love in his previous life. Chu Yang spent a lot of effort suppressing this emotion in order to continue to cultivate peacefully. Just then, an energy inside him suddenly surged up as if trying to break out from some invisible shackles. Chu Yang's eyes narrowed as he manipulated the vortex of energy with special attention to his Dantian. At this point the little Nine Tribulations Sword spirit seemed to become the center of everything. The vortex from his Dantian swirled around the Nine Tribulations Sword spirit 9 times and, like lightning, shot straight into the meridians. Like a massive force of nature, it flooded throughout his meridian channels. Gradually growing powerful, the energy swirled around his meridians 9 times and became a powerful wave. Chu Yang's concentration was disturbed as this wave pushed past the level of martial pupil and aggressively advanced into the level of martial warrior. Boom! Chu Yang could only hear an exploding sound from inside him like thunder. His whole body shook violently, and suddenly fresh crimson blood shot out from his mouth and nostrils. At this time the vast energy had risen up and broke through his barriers, flooding into new meridian channels. Chu Yang was meticulous in controlling his energy flow, because after a breakthrough, using new meridian channels can lead to injuries if not carefully done. These injuries would be the invisible force that limited a martial art practitioner's achievements in the future. He was being careful as if crossing a bridge made of a single log. After leading his energy around the meridian channels 1 time, Chu Yang was soaked in sweat. However, he did not falter and continued applying all his efforts. 1 round, 2 rounds. 9 rounds were completed. After the cycle was done, Chu Yang let out a powerful breath. He felt as if he has less than half his strength. Then, a relaxed feeling came over him like he was immersed in warm water. Chu Yang spit out a dark mass. Even in the night, it flashed a bright black light and then dissipated into thin air. In a hidden place in purple bamboo forest, Men Zhaoran stood erect. His whole body was covered in the night's dew. He was attentively watching over his disciple. At the moment Chu Yang succeeded, Men Zhaoran also let out a sigh of relief. Chu Yang has just gained another step in his cultivation path. Meridian purification. Men Zhaoran was flabbergasted when he saw Chu Yang spit out the demonic dark mass. Unable to control himself, his eyes opened wide and his mouth suddenly uttered those words. This was the impurities from his meridians. Chu Yang had only just broken through martial warrior level. How could he have expelled the impurities out of his meridians? What sort of peculiar disciple have I taken in? Men Zhaoran was completely startled. Anyone capable of doing what Chu Yang did was extraordinary. Men Zhaoran was one who wouldn't blink even if the sky fell down, so there was no precedence for such an occurrence at Beyond the Heaven sect. If Wu Yunliang's people knew about this, their eyeballs would have popped out of their sockets and fled. Normally, a little impurity from the body was pushed out during the breakthrough into martial warrior. This process was called body transformation. In principle, impurities from the periphery of the body are pushed out slowly with the gradual cultivation through the 9 grades of martial warrior. The one after that was at the level of martial master. The martial master breakthrough was also the same, with step-by-step process of getting rid of impurities from the body and getting the body ready for the cultivation path ahead. The impurities purged by a martial master were from the 5 organs in the body. This process was called internal transformation. After that, there was the martial great master breakthrough. The impurities expelled during this stage were from the meridians. This was when a person truly began to walk on the path of cultivation. This process of getting rid of impurities was called meridian purification. Beyond that was the realm of revered martial artist. When cultivating, the body could expel impurities from the deepest places inside the body. The impurities from within marrow of the body that were detrimental to cultivation. This was called marrow purification. Marrow purification was the last step in the process of training the body. Currently, Chu Yang had only broken through martial warrior level and he could already perform meridian purification. It would be strange if Men Jiaoran was not terrified. It should be noted that Men Jiaoran was currently only capable of meridian purification as well. Chu Yang breathed a sigh of relief. He had finally broken through martial warrior level. In other words, now he just needed to get the first piece of the Nine Tribulations Sword, then he could immediately cultivate 9 tribulations transcending the 9 heavens technique. Men Jiaoran was surprised, but Chu Yang was not. Every early morning, when he was steadfastly practicing the same movements, he never ceased to eliminate impurities from his body. The impurities external as well as internal of his body was virtually eliminated in the morning mist. It was the mystery of 9 Tribulations Sword, targeting the mysterious points of the human body. Even simple actions can cause the entire body, from inside to out, to move. Moreover, it simultaneously multiplied the pressure that pushed impurities out by several folds. Just one simple movement that seemed so simple at first glance have become an invaluable tool. It can be even considered priceless in the martial art world. Chu Yang stood up, his feet planted firm on the ground, his upper bent slowly backward. His waist seemed to have broken as his body bent backwards and his head went between his 2 legs. After that his arms gripped tightly around his legs, his body forming a circle. With a bit of force, his whole body suddenly shot up like a ball, spinning in midair. DLN, this extreme yoga may be hard to imagine, so I drew a picture. Men Jiaoran observed that although Chu Yang was constantly moving in midair, every part of his body was capable of producing a different action. From his head to the tip of his toes simultaneously produce rattling sounds from the joints again and again. Men Jiaoran was startled. Even though he did not know the efficacy of this action, he knew that it was extremely difficult, and if he were to try it, he would not be able to do it at first try. Chu Yang spun in midair 7 or 8 times before descending and rolling on the ground. After that, he suddenly stretched like a chick just hatched from an egg. The noise made by his joints became overwhelming. Then he slowly stood up. His whole body was wobbly like a toddler just learning how to walk for the first time. His 2 erect legs were trembling as if holding up a heavy load. With each shake a clear sound echoed throughout the misty forest. In the end, Chu Yang's whole body was erect and steadied. The sounds his joints made became lessened. His 2 arms followed a bizarre motion and started to swing. Once again, the sound of joints rattling started to emit from his arms. Clack. 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 Men Jiaoran was stupefied. He vaguely understood the implications of these actions. However, such understanding only made him more terrified. The movements, unbelievably, were part of the life convergence technique. Each movement seemed extremely bizarre and inexplicable, but full of hints of the major sects. From nothing to existence, to egg, to maturity, to hatching, to flying up. This was the life convergence of birds. DLN, so a bird imitation technique of some sort. After finishing these 4 movements, Chu Yang stopped. This was also one of the underlying set of movements of Nine Tribulations Sword. It can only be cultivated after entering the level of martial warrior. If one were to cultivate it at the martial pupil level, then it is likely that the body and bones would be crushed to pieces. The suffering that one undergoes while practicing these movements was similar to having their bones pulled out. Moreover, this pain that seeps right to the bone was constant. Yet, from the beginning to end, Chu Yang did not even make a sound. By speaking, he would release out a lot of vital energy. Then the effectiveness of these movements would then be reduced by a great amount. Soon after his rebirth, Chu Yang was determined to do each task the best way possible. When everything was done, Chu Yang stretched and took a deep breath. His whole body started sweating intensely. It could be seen that the ground he stood on was quickly becoming soaked. Master, these four movements are known as Way of Infinite Universe. There are many mysteries within it. This disciple can only do it poorly like this. Please let me know where the errors were. Chu Yang said casually without needing to turn around. He knew that his master would certainly come to watch over his breakthrough. Even though he could not sense him, he was sure that Men Jiaoran would be around. He had learned this in the next 4 years of his previous life. Each time one of the 3 disciples had a breakthrough, Men Jiaoran acted aloof on the exterior but was truly more worried than the disciples themselves. Each time, the master was completely dedicated to silently watching and guarding over the 3. For them, when it was time for a breakthrough, all they had to do was try hard. They did not know that the master was secretly distressed for many days. Men Jiaoran would never say anything, he only took action. In the previous life, by the time Chu Yang realized his master's pain and efforts, it was too late. In this life, how could he ignore it as if he did not know? Men Jiaoran laughed loudly and walked out from within Purple Bamboo Forest. He asked, "How did you know I was here?" Chu Yang smiled, his eyes full of affection. He said, "Each time one of us has a breakthrough, where did you go?" When we cultivate, we were never disturbed. When we have a breakthrough, our surroundings were extremely peaceful. There was not even a bug, let alone rodent, snakes. Something like that inside Purple Bamboo Forest. How could it not be surprising? Men Jiaoran smiled happily. "It was your effort. The breakthrough was from your own abilities." This master only silently watched. Men Jiaoran did not say it, but he was touched. He knew those movements was done intentionally for him to see so he could cultivate and enhance his self-defense capability. A set of movements like this was extremely useful in the path of cultivation. Men Jiaoran did not say anything further, but simply noted this silently. This set of movements was a treasure. He simply did not know where Chu Yang learned it from. Regardless, Men Jiaoran did not ask. Everyone has their own secrets. If Chu Yang did not want to tell him, then he won't ask. He respected the privacy of his disciples. Chu Yang is my disciple. Knowing that is enough. Men Jiaoran stood there for a while before returning. In the days Chu Yang prepared for the breakthrough, how could he have not known? He carefully observed Chu Yang's actions for many days. This has led to unbearable mental fatigue. However, Chu Yang just had a breakthrough. He was not sleepy at all. In the middle of the night, Chu Yang sat by himself at the top of the mountain, looking into the darkness. His heart throbbed. "King Wu, I am now a martial warrior. I will be able to cultivate 9 tribulations to transcend the 9 heavens quickly. Then I will have the ability to watch over you and protect you. I will not let you suffer any little injuries." Where are you this moment? Currently King Wu is only 10 years old. Chu Yang could not help but gently smiled. What does King Wu look like right now? Probably still a little playful runt, still in pigtails. In the previous life, I did not meet Mo King Wu for another 9 years. She was 19, I was 25. Thinking about Mo King Wu, Chu Yang went back to previous life. He recalled Mo King Wu liked purple bamboo, and he, reminiscing his warm childhood, chose the most purple of bamboo forests to cultivate in. Therefore, at a purple bamboo forest on the heavenly misty peak of the Nirvana Mountains, he and Mo King Wu met for the first time. Ultimately, Mo King Wu was also attacked near Heavenly Misty Peak's purple bamboo forest. The place where there were some purple bamboo houses he and Mo King Wu built together. There were a few young bamboo shoots. Mo King Wu had carefully planted them one by one along the road he often walked on. At that time, she said, Chu Yang, if I die one day, please spread my ashes on this road, so my spirit can be part of it. So every time you walk by here, you can step on me. I voluntarily let you step on me. Even though you might not intend to visit me but only want to see purple bamboo, it would still be good. I only need to feel your presence even if it's just for a little while. A little is good enough. King Wu, King Wu. Chu Yang thought bitterly. There was a gentle smile on his face and his eyes seemed full of longing. It was getting late into the night, almost midnight. Chu Yang sat on a large boulder with his arms wrapped around his knees. He was immersed in his memories with his clothes fluttering in the night wind and wrapping around him, making him look like solid pine stump. Another 2 hours passed. The night's sky was at its darkest. Just as Chu Yang was about to stand up to go back to his room, he suddenly sensed something out of the ordinary. His gaze sharpened, and he focused on the mountain range on the right. There was a small path leading from another mountain range into beyond the heavens sect that very few people knew about. Under Chu Yang's intense gaze, there appeared 3 black shadows gliding forward as quickly as the wind at the foot of the mountain. In the shadows of the night, they appeared and disappeared like apparitions. Chu Yang frowned. This was the best time for secretive actions. Moreover, this darkest window barely lasts an hour. These people clearly hid there earlier and waited till this hour to take action. They absolutely had bad intentions. Remembering Men Zhaoran's words about protecting beyond the heavens sect, Chu Yang's eyes narrowed. He stood up and like a comet, he shot forward. Stepping on the vertical cliff face a few times, he was finally at the foot of the mountain. Using the trees and shrubs as covering, he moved at the fastest possible speed in the direction of the 3 people. Even though Chu Yang was currently only a first-grade martial warrior, he was not afraid at all. If he could not fight them, he certainly was capable of escaping. If these people truly had malicious intents, Chu Yang felt he needed to get involved to pay back his master and the sect. After only a few moments of giving chase, he had already covered a few miles. Chu Yang moved his body lightly. He was as flexible as smoke. If there was an expert watching him on the side, he would have been shocked. Every place Chu Yang stepped on was in an absolute blind spot. Even though his speed was extremely fast, he continually ended up in places that completely covered his body. The hiding spots that he only just found were actually impeccable positions. Being a few meters away, he could take one glance at the terrain ahead and immediately created a perfect plan of action. Chu Yang kept moving forward. After chasing for about 5 or 6 miles, he could see the entrance to Beyond the Heavens sect in the distance. He suddenly realized something and stopped charging forth. In a flash, his body blended with the shadows of the night. Afterward, he slowly moved forward along the mountainside, not making even the slightest sound. The 3 shadows huddled in a crack on the mountainside and quietly waited. Not too far in front of them was the entrance to Beyond the Heavens sect, a place well guarded day and night by many disciples. Each of the 9 peaks sent one disciple to monitor each other as well as jointly guard the entrance. With the exception of Purple Bamboo Garden, all 9 peaks of Beyond the Heavens sect were part of this mountain range. These people obviously did not dare storm the entrance even though, in term of strength, they were probably not afraid of these disciples. However, if an altercation were to occur then they basically rustled the grass and scared the snake. DLN, another saying, meaning acting rashly and alert the enemy. It seemed that they were either waiting or planned to take some action right there. Chu Yang calculated silently. His body moved little by little in an extremely careful manner. He finally gained another 3 meters, putting the distance between them at less than 10 meters. The 3 all had black scarves covering their faces. They carefully hid themselves behind a large boulder. When Chu Yang saw where they were hiding, he could not help but praise them. It would seem this was not their first time here. The place where they were hiding was blocked off on all 3 sides, with on one side facing toward 2 possible escape routes, one of which was very well hidden. In the case of some unintended event, they could still quickly escape without being surrounded by the enemies. Chu Yang slowed his breathing, almost stopping it. His body became an extension of the rock as he quietly waited. When it comes to patience, he was certain that there was no one under the heavens comparable to him. Time slowly drifted when a thin one of the 3, having little patience, asked in a low voice, What's going on here? Weren't the appointment time clearly stated already? Why is that wretch not here yet? Be a little patient, don't be quick to have a temper. Another person in a black outfit looked around and gave warning. After that, he looked up again suspiciously and said, "Why do I feel like there are some little movements?" Hearing this, the other two became alert as well. Their ears perked as they tried to listen to their surroundings. Chu Yang maintained his breathing, and paid no more attention to their words than he would a passing breeze. He did not move. This was a kind of sense, like when you are walking on a road alone and someone was following you. You can feel this without turning around. One does not have to be a martial artist, any regular person has this sensing ability. However, if one turns around and sees nothing, then one would just assume that such a sense was wrong. Sure enough, the three looked around and were reassured. The black-robed person who noticed something earlier now mocked himself and said, "I was just being paranoid." Caution is always a good thing. The other two said in low voices. At this moment, there were some movements at the sect's entrance. A voice shouted out, "Who goes there?" A firm voice replied, "It is I." "Ah, it is second elder martial uncle." This disciple was disrespectful. "Second elder martial uncle, you are going to cultivate?" "That's right. Cultivation requires determination. You should also remember that if you put in enough effort to file down steel, you will have a needle one day. DLN, with hard work, the most difficult of tasks can be accomplished. The natural energy of heaven and earth will be most potent at sunrise. This is also the best time to cultivate. Yes, we will keep your teachings. A black shadow slowly went across the entrance. Behind him, the guarding disciples were still praising. Second elder martial uncle is an important person in our sect. Even though his cultivation level is so high, he is so down to earth. Moreover, he is extremely diligent. He went out every day at this time to cultivate. His stamina is admirable. I am sure I could not be like that. Another voice said, "That doesn't need to be said." Second elder martial uncle is an incredible person. How can you compare? Chu Yang was shocked. This person was really second elder martial uncle, Li Jinsong, Li Jianyin's father, head of Locking Clouds Peak in Beyond the Heavens sect. Second top person of the sect. Li Jinsong was dressed neatly with sword hanging on his waist. His appearance showed he was going to practice with his sword. He deliberately left the sect and with a jump he flew away, creating a graceful curve in the air. After a few jumps, Li Jinsong neared that place, but he did a few rounds before arriving at that large boulder. It seems this is not the first time they meet. Chu Yang thought to himself. Moreover, the disciple did say that he went out every day at this time to cultivate. This showed that Li Jinsong had secretly done this many times before. Why did you wait until this hour? Any news? The thin one in the three asked briskly. Am I late? Li Jinsong asked with a humph, showing that he was obviously annoyed with that question. He continued, You brought the item. No hurry with that item. Another black outfit person quickly appeased him. Elder brother Li, quickly tell us of the recent changes. With another humph, Li Jinsong suppressed his voice and said, There is something devilish going on. I want to ask, besides you people, are there anyone else interested in Beyond the Heavens sect? The three black outfits were stunned and stared at each other. We are really not clear on this. In any case, Beyond the Heavens sect is currently in a precarious situation. It is likely that there are people who want to cast their nets. Li Jinsong said, a while ago, Wu Yunliang sent the ninth master, Bao Qiang, along with two top disciples of the sect and his daughter to Iron Cloud Nation. Iron Cloud Nation? The three cried out in unison. Exactly. Moreover, this action was very secretive, but, from what I learned, the four of them were attacked en route more than once. Obviously, someone did not want them to get to their destination. Plus, they seem to have been very well informed. Li Jinsong said with a calm face. Behind them, Chu Yang was astounded. It seemed that Li Jinsong was not the only mole. What was the purpose for going to Iron Cloud Nation? The three asked, only wanting to know the reasons and obviously without a care for the well-being of Bao Qiang's group. I don't know. Li Jinsong frowned, and immediately added, in any case, no matter what happened, they have gone to Iron Cloud. For us, This means half of our goal has been achieved. Exactly. Beyond the Heavens sect is in the territory of our great Zhou. But Wu Yunliang dared send people to collude with Iron Cloud. He is really audacious. One of the black outfits said in a low voice. Just this piece of information alone made our journey worthwhile. Li brother, you have done well, said another black outfitted person. Even though his face was covered, the sound of his voice showed that he was only smiling outwardly. I dare not receive such compliments. It was what you have done that helped this situation along. Li Jinsong said thoughtfully. You are part of the Imperial Army, you have the resources, and you certainly would not let things go on their own course if you could help it, let alone the fact that we have been secretly putting more pressure on Wu Yunliang, making him lean toward Iron Cloud. Even though nothing is finalized yet, my mission is almost complete. Chu Yang was stunned. People from the Imperial Army? Beyond the Heaven sect was a sect in Jianghu. What did the Imperial Army have anything to do with it? And apparently, this Imperial Army referred to the Imperial Army of the great state of Zhao. Chu Yang had a vague feeling that an astronomic conspiracy was unfolding. It was likely that the destruction of Beyond the Heavens sect in his previous life was related to this. Marshal Brother Li, was that not the original agreement between Minister Daiwu and you? The black outfit leader asked laughingly. We help Minister Daiwu depose Wu Yunliang, eliminating an opposition. We will protect Beyond the Heavens sect, making it an imperial sect. Your disciples can become officials of the court with glorious future and make their family proud. He smiled and continued, such a wonderful position. Even the leader of the sect's alliance would be extremely touched. How could you possibly feel that a few pieces of information such as this is worthy of a lifetime of riches? Li Jinsong became livid. Each word was filled with anger. The lives of my entire household are in your hands. Why bother with talk of riches? The black outfitted person thought for a moment and eventually lowered his voice. In truth, Marshal Brother Li, I dare not hide the facts. You wanted a 1,000-year-old crystal mushroom. It's really too hard to find. The minister sent 18 teams to search everywhere. Once it is found, it will be brought to you immediately. He continued with a cheerful tone. The minister knew you are currently most concerned with this. Marshal Brother Li, you are one romantic person. Such a rare and mysterious treasure between heaven and earth is the stuff of dreams and not always achievable. If Marshal Brother Li does not have the patience, there's nothing we can do. With a humph, Li Jinsong said angrily, I can wait, for 100 years even. However, my wife cannot. She depends on it to save her life. Of course. That's why even though Minister Daiwu cannot send a 1,000-year-old crystal mushroom, he gave us thrice-born pills to bring to you. The black outfit person laughed contentedly. 3. Li Jinsong perked his head. Really? Not only him but even Chu Yang, who was secretly listening, was a little shocked. Thrice-born pills, 1,000-year-old crystal mushroom. These were things you could not hope to find. Why would Li Jinsong need them? Thrice-born pills were not actually medicine pills but a kind of fruit from a strange tree. This tree would sprout and grow branches, but then would wilt after 10 years. After 20 more years, it would sprout more branches for 50 years, making itself a small tree. At that time it would wilt for a period of 50 years, and after that, it would sprout for a third time. This time it takes 200 years to become a fully grown tree and bloom a kind of poisonous flower. The fruits from these flowers are thrice-born pills. These fruits were the size of a grape. As for the tree, it would immediately wilt and never recover again. Thrice born for a total of 330 years to have fruits just once. The value of such fruits was obvious, but the effectiveness as a medicine was even more so. It could be used to end chronic illnesses, to keep incurable diseases at bay, to treat serious injuries, increase internal energy, and increase life expectancy. As for 1,000 years crystal mushroom, that was the stuff of legends. Under the heavens, it was the ultimate medicine. It was said that it could save lives, regrow muscles, bones, etc. As for the specifics, even Chu Yang did not know. However, both of these are similar in that they cure illnesses. Is it possible that Li Jinsong's wife is sick? This Minister Daiwu was really generous. He gave Li Jinsong 3 thrice-born pills in one shot. 3 thrice-born pill fruits, enough to keep my wife safe for 3 years. there appeared a jade box in the black outfit person's hand. He said, Minister Daiwu said that if he cannot find crystal mushroom in 3 years, he will definitely find other ways to compensate for your loss. He raised his voice and said, Minister Daiwu was clear on this matter. For 1,000 times, he would not deceive you in this matter. The minister said that even though both sides are in this for their own benefits, frankness and earnestness are critical. These words came straight from the minister's mouth. Li Jinsong bowed his head and said in a low, serious voice, thank you for the minister's frankness and sincerity. Li Jinsong understands. His head was bowed down when he said this. The sky was also dark so his facial expression could not be seen. But Chu Yang, who was hiding behind a boulder, sneered internally. By the sound of it, this Minister Daiwu seemed great. However, adding on Li Jinsong's words from earlier, the lives of my entire household are in your hands. Why bother with talk of riches? All of his praises became rotten. It was true that Li Jinsong was greedy. However, he did not voluntarily do this, he was certainly being threatened. The person who threatened him was the one talking about trust. If Li Jinsong truly believed in it, then he must be the #1 idiot under the heavens. Thrice-born pills is extremely precious. If you want to preserve them well, then just leave them in this box. Only open it when necessary. You should know that each time you open this box, the potency of the thrice-born pills will decrease. DLN. Sounds suspicious. The black outfit person solemnly instructed and continued, about Iron Cloud, we need to quickly report this to Minister Daiwu. The minister will certainly have some plans for this. Marshal Brother Li, we bid farewell. With an authoritative voice, Li Jinsong said, I won't see you off then. And with that, he carefully pocketed the jade box into his robe. The 3 people in the black outfits had gone far away, yet Li Jinsong still remained standing in the same place. With a heavy sigh, he went back with the jade box. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared in the darkness. Chu Yang continued to stand still in his hiding place behind the boulder. His breathing was maintained without any changes. As expected, the sound of the wind rose. Li Jinsong appeared once again. He made a few rounds of the surroundings, and when he was sure there was no one was around to spy on him, he flew away. He finally left. Chu Yang sighed inwardly. He knew that the secrets he heard today were closely related to the survival of Beyond the Heavens sect. This was extremely important. If he were discovered, then surviving would be as difficult as flying to heaven. Cannot be too careful. No one could imagine that the mole in Beyond the Sects was the second-ranking member of the sect, the all-powerful Li Jinsong. Chu Yang wanted to move and stretch his arms and legs, which seemed to have hardened, when suddenly his whole body stiffened. He quietly looked up ahead. In the place where the 4 were just talking, there unexpectedly appeared from out of nowhere an apparition of a black-outfitted person. Chu Yang's scalp became a little numbed because he couldn't believe that he completely did not detect when this person had come. This person was dressed in black. His tall and slender stature stood motionless. After a moment, he suddenly sighed and said casually, Chu Yang, come on out. The hair on Chu Yang's nape stood on its ends. It seemed this person clearly knew where he was. Moreover, who he was. It was too late for escape now. Plus, from the sound of his voice, it did not seem he had any malicious intentions. Chu Yang decided to come out. He walked forward step by step. You heard everything? That person asked with his hands clasped behind his back. With his back toward Chu Yang, he asked in a leisurely manner. Yes, you heard everything as well? Moreover, compared to me, you probably heard even better, right? Chu smiled slightly as he narrowed his eyes and asked back. The other person let out a deep laugh as he slowly turned around. The darkest period has now passed, and the sky slowly brightened. The early morning sun rays from the horizon weakly shone on the face of this person. His black beard loosely hung in front of his chest, his face straight and serious, letting out an aura that demanded respect. After seeing him, Chu Yang could not help but become even more shaken. He was so surprised that he was speechless. This person, unexpectedly, was the sect master of Beyond the Heavens sect, Wu Yunliang. Why was he here? If he was here, then he definitely already knew what Li Jinsong was up to. Why didn't he stop him? At the moment, a curtain of doubt was raised inside Chu Yang. He only felt hazy and confused. Even a person who lived 2 lifetimes like him could not make sense of this entanglement. "Follow me," Wu Yunliang said, looking at brightening sky. Suddenly, he grabbed Chu Yang's sleeve and pulled him. They ran quickly, turning east and west until they got to a crevice in the mountain not too far from Purple Bamboo Garden. This crevice was not especially secluded, but it was relatively empty and deserted. This was because there was nothing of interest in this crevice, so Chu Yang and the others normally did not bother to come here. On the wall there was a spot that had collapsed, making a perfect little cave almost 2 meters deep. Coming. Wu Yunliang entered first. DLN, for readers who skipped the blog post, please note that 5th minister actually was Minister Daiwu. Sorry for the mistake. Chu Yang followed. Upon entering, he found a small, glossy stone pedestal. It seemed to have been made into a sitting bench and looked like it had been used very often. As expected, with a flourish of his sleeves, Wu Yunliang sat down on it. He looked up at Chu Yang and stared carefully at him for a moment. The corner of his mouth revealed a smile. There was even perhaps a feel of familiarity. "You were not bad." Wu Yunliang's first sentence was short. Those 3 were people from the Golden Horse Rider Department of Great Zhao. More specifically, the Golden Horse Rider Department currently being controlled by Prime Minister Daiwu Qingru, an extremely secretive organization. Wu Yunliang began explaining without giving Chu Yang a chance to talk. Golden Horse Rider Department, Daiwu Qingru. Chu Yang seemed to be thinking about something. These 2 names were so big in his previous life that the mere mention of them was like the sound of thunder. The Golden Horse Rider Department was actually the secret weapon of the Great Zhao dynasty. DLN, think Hollywood's version of CIA/MI6. As for Daiwu Qingru, the name might sounded gentle. DLN, Qingru means gentle, but he was in fact a powerful and talented character, world-renowned. Legend has it that this person did not understand martial arts. However, he had started reading at 3, and had finished schooling at 5. By the time he was 13, his scholarly talents had made him famous all over. He became an official at the age of 16, and was able to manage a whole group of towns in an orderly manner. At the age of 20, he oversaw the entire southeast territory of Great Zhao. At 25, he became an official in the imperial court and was involved in management of the territories of the entire Great Zhao nation. At the age of 30, he ascended to the position of prime minister. This person was now not yet 35 years old, but he served only under one person and had dominion over millions. He could call the winds and stop the waves. DLN, not literally, of course. With control over the imperial court and military officials, he was all-powerful under the heavens. Such achievements, there could be only one in all of time. Before, the officials were always in conflict with each other. However, this Minister Daiwu brought the scholars and the military officials together. This was because he did not merely have the capability to oversee a nation, but he also had the ambition to expand beyond the borders. Uniting all under the heavens was the biggest desire of Daiwu Qingru. In Chu Yang's previous life, this Daiwu Qingru commanded all of the lower 3 heavens continent. It seemed that across the lower 3 heavens, there was not one conspiracy without the shadow of influence of this Daiwu Qingru. It was precisely under the orders of Daiwu Qingru that the Golden Horse Rider Department carried out the assassination of the next ruler of Iron Cloud Nation, Crown Prince Taibudan. After that, he sent the armored cavalry of Great Zhao to aggressively attack Iron Cloud and decimated them in one move. Great Zhao became as powerful as the sun at midday and took over Limitless Nation as well. From then on, all of the lower 3 heavens was ruled by Great Zhao. The most powerful thing about Daiwu Qingru was the fact that he did not just use the imperial court's power but also that of the sects in Jianghu. He used their conflicting interests and greed to either cause chaos or create allies. With his skillful manipulation, he gradually led them to inadvertently help Great Zhao accomplish those tasks that either it could not do or found inconvenient. Furthermore, what was worse was that they did not notice this. If he did not admit it himself, then it was likely that the sects would be forever blinded by his deceptions. In the previous life, when Chu Yang was looking for the 9 Tribulations Sword fragments in the upper 3 heavens, Great Zhao nation has already conquered Iron Cloud and Limitless. It has already begun to expand its borders beyond that. The name Golden Horse Rider Department had become a permanent fixture under the heavens because of these conquests. Wu Yanliang naturally did not know that Chu Yang knew these things and had continued to explain to him what the Golden Horse Rider Department was. This disciple only wants to know why you did not stop it. Chu Yang's eyes narrowed. Why should I stop it? Wu Yanliang smiled. These past years, I have, without fail, gone with second martial brother to that cultivation spot. Wu Yanliang smiled sarcastically. Even though he did not know it, I already knew since that very first contact they made 5 years ago. Chu Yang became even more alarmed. While he was still looking at Wu Yanliang's warm face, he could not help but felt a sense of loss rising up inside him. In his previous life, because the sect was destroyed and Chu Yang never had any interaction with this sect master, he looked down on him. A master who let his sect get destroyed was not worthy of any mention. But now that he knew Wu Yanliang to be a shrewd person, anyone who thought that he was dumb would truly be the dumb one. Actually, when you think about it, no one becomes a sect leader by being an idiot. DLN, I beg to differ. There are plenty of lucky idiot heroes in Yuxiya. However, Wu Yanliang did let a conspiracy develop for 5 years. Why? Chu Yang looked at Wu Yanliang's composed face and seemed to vaguely understand a little bit. At first they wanted to incite a rebellion inside Beyond the Heavens sect. Truthfully, since I became master of Beyond the Heavens sect, the other martial brothers were disgruntled. The elders of the sect even started to split into factions. A rebellion was already starting. A situation like this needed to be purged before the sect can grow stronger. Wu Yanliang said with a heavy heart, that is why I let him do what he did. If I was not successful, then the sect would have been destroyed anyway. There was nothing more to say. But by the second year, they gradually exposed their true purpose. That was to use the excuse that Beyond the Heavens sect colluded with outsiders to start a war between Great Zhao and Iron Cloud. Using this pretext, they would pay only a small price to destroy Iron Cloud and further their plans to unify all under the heavens. How can this be? Chu Yang said fearfully, Beyond the Heavens sect, no matter how strong, is only a sect. How could it be in the position to spark a war between two countries? Nothing is impossible. What's important is whether you do it and how you would do it. Wu Yanliang laughed coldly. Sect master, why did you say these things to me? Was this not the first time we met? The more he heard, the more Chu Yang became uneasy. He felt as if he was being pulled into a quagmire of a big conspiracy. His legs was covered in mud and he had no way of pulling them out. Calm down, don't rush. Of course I told you for a reason. Have a seat first. Wu Yanliang glared. Chu Yang reluctantly raised his eyebrows and found a rock to sit on. It might have been deliberate or unintentional, but the rock he was sitting on was bigger and taller than that of Wu Yanliang. Earlier when he was standing and Wu Yanliang was sitting, it seemed like he was the subordinate listening to orders. However, now that he was sitting down, even though his height was about the same as when he was standing, the appearance seemed to have reversed with Chu Yang looking down from above. The sect master was sitting below him. This situation was indeed paradoxical. Wu Yanliang raised an eyebrow, and laughed as if it was nothing. He looked at Chu Yang without paying any mind to his disrespect and continued to talk. Chu Yang let out a pained laugh internally. He only needed Wu Yanliang to give one hint of discontent, then he would have a reason to take his leave and escape from this predicament. Surprisingly, this cunning man was not bothered by it at all. Curiosity can kill. This is true enough. Chu Yang was full of regrets. Did I have nothing to do but follow those three? I have bought my own noose. Even though the Crown Prince of Iron Cloud, Taibutan, is still young, only 17 or 18, he is extremely talented. Moreover, he values the forces in Jianghu, especially martial artists. With his own hands, he created a place called Butan Pavilion, a place for gathering heroes from all over. Particularly, this person has respect for the wise. He searches for good talents and treats them generously. He is a rare youth. Iron Cloud Nation's King Ch. Cheng is sickly and constantly bedridden. The whole country depends on Tian for day-to-day operations. Even though he has not ascended to the throne yet, he is the pillar of Iron Cloud military. You can say that if Tian died, Iron Cloud Nation will definitely fall. Chu Yang drooped and mumbled in agreement. Talented youth. Then what? He will be killed 3 years from now. The country will be destroyed along with him. Chu Yang clearly remembered the Prince of Iron Cloud Nation's death was because Great Zhao sent more than 500 expert martial artists. They even had to spend a large sum of money to hire assassin organizations in order to be successful. However, no one was alive afterward. At the time, this story shook the whole world. Iron Cloud National also retaliated with extreme cruelty. It was a blood-soaked revenge. Thousands died in the 4 districts on Great Zhao border. Even livestock were not spared. It was clearly seen how important the Crown Prince of Iron Cloud was. However, it is in his generous treatment of talents that Great Zhao found his weakness. Wu Yunliang said with a heavy heart, "It is naturally a good point, but his generous treatment will lead to closeness which provides an advantage to assassins. That's why many people are casual and friendly before they are successful, but become unapproachable afterward. This is not because they have changed, but because of safety reasons." Chu Yang acted indifferent on the outside, but internally said, "That makes sense." Great Zhao has, over the course of time, sent more than 20 groups of assassins to kill Tian, but they have all retreated in failure. That's why they wanted to use our Beyond the Heavens sect. Wu Yunliang let out an icy laugh. With an ah, Chu Yang said, "That's why eldest martial uncle decided not to expose their plan after learning about it, but instead designed your own plans? Not bad." Wu Yunliang stroked his beard and said, "They wanted to take advantage of us, why not take advantage of them and use this opportunity to rise up?" Chu Yang finally understood the reason why Beyond the Heavens sect was destroyed in his previous life. It was because Wu Yunliang wanted to use the opportunity of 2 countries in conflict to rise up. However, his overcalculated plan turned into shreds. This was too complicated. When it comes to dealing with an anomaly like Dawu Qingru, no one can be sure of anything. Even someone from his previous life who was hailed as a master of calculation and manipulation, Tian Ji, had to stand inferior to Dawu Qingru. After conquering all of the lower 3 heavens continent, the people praised Dawu Qingru with the following chant: "One person but more than 100,000 mighty advisors." When referring to him, even his enemies have to concede that he is the one and only in history. This person was born full of schemes, a natural politician and military commander. Moreover, he was regal and has comprehensive knowledge of all things. It has been said that even though Dawu Qingru does not know any martial arts, if he were to enter upper 3 heavens, he would at least become a ruler over a territory. This level of admiration was terrifying. Wu Yunliang was taking a big risk. Like walking on a tightrope on the side of the 1,000-meter-tall mountain, he only needed to have one little slip, then his body would be in pieces. "I know I am playing with fire," Wu Yunliang said with a worrisome countenance. "One slip and Beyond the Heavens sect would surely be destroyed. But I can't afford not to play this game." Chu Yang nodded in agreement. Great Zhao has applied a lot of pressure on Beyond the Heavens sect all these years for their plans. However, time and time again they did not push us to the point of death. Just enough for us lean toward Iron Cloud. We only need to completely side with Iron Cloud. The moles in the sect. Besides your second martial uncle, there are 3 others from the 10 of us. All in collusion with other sects. This is also the reason why these past few years the other sects also bullied us a lot. I imagine this is also part of Dawu Qingru's plan. We just have yet to see what his real purpose is. One thing that I am sure of is when we have completely side with Iron Cloud, the assassination of Tian would become much easier. Wu Yunliang worried. Dawu Qingru only needs Tian to die and does not care about Beyond the Heavens sect. However, once Tian dies, our Beyond the Heavens sect will surely vaporize like a mist. Chu Yang's face gradually became serious. He did not know all the details of this event, but he did know that, in his previous life, Tian would die, and he would die 2 months before Beyond the Heaven sect is destroyed? If Wu Yunliang continued to follow his plans, then the tragedy will most likely happen again. However, if Wu Yunliang abandoned his plans, then Beyond the Heavens sect will fall under pressure from the court and other sects, all arranged by one Daewoo King Ru, and perish even quicker. Moreover, the plans were in full motion and cannot be stopped. Beyond the Heavens sect and Iron Cloud Nation have already established their relationship. Even without Wu Yunliang, Li Jinsong can still have the authority to act as an official representative. Thus, Daewoo King Ru's plans moved forward with ease. With Daewoo King Ru's extreme craftiness, this was no difficulty at all. In fact, it was almost a convenience. Besides the reasons mentioned, there was another reason why Daewoo King Ru chose Beyond the Heavens sect. Beyond the Heavens sect was very close to the border between Great Zhao and Limitless Nation. Plus the place was full of high mountains and dense forests. An army of 10,000 could be hidden here and no one would be the wiser. This was a strategic spot for war. If Iron Cloud Nation were to perish, Great Zhao would march its army from Iron Cloud through Beyond the Heavens sect and be in Limitless Nation in 5 days. At that time, if other troops also marched into Limitless Nation from other directions, then it would be taken in less than a month. In another word, Daewoo King Ru had extensively planned layers upon layers of scheme. And he only needed the small key that was Beyond the Heavens sect to open wide the door that would lead him to unifying all under the heavens. The details of his plans were probably not that simple. It was likely that there were countless conspiracies, manipulations, and knots, all of which Chu Yang had no knowledge of. What he did know were the events which unfolded in his previous life. The issue at hand was that while Chu Yang knew the exact direction of the events to follow but had no power to change it, not only could he not think of a way to stop it, no one would believe what he has to say. Dear reader, if you stood in the middle of the road and said, in 2050, the Earth will be destroyed, how many people would believe you? Most likely they will uniformly call you crazy. Moreover, how would you stop the Earth from being destroyed? Even if you knew exactly when it would be destroyed, what can you do? Chu Yang was currently in that exact situation. He was just an average disciple of Beyond the Heavens sect. What skills did he have to change a fate that was created by the military power of hundreds of thousands from the 3 nations? For the first time, Chu Yang had a kind of feeling, history, it cannot be changed. So what if I had a second life? It's just the concern of one man with no relation to any others. If history cannot be turned, then what will be of King Wu? What should I do? Should I just watch the tragedies unfold this second time around? At this moment, Chu Yang suddenly felt something clear but at the same time fuzzy. His spirit entered into a mysterious realm. If I cannot change these events, then this proves that history cannot be changed. Those who are supposed to die will die. Even after 100,000 actions, everyone is still bound by their unchangeable fate. If these events could not be changed, then Mo King Wu's fate could not be changed. At most it can be changed by a few years. Like the case of Shi Qianshan, he was supposed to die in 4 years and now he died 4 years early. As for Mo King Wu, Chu Yang could try and help her live a few years longer, but she would soon meet her tragic fate. This was one of the things that no one can predict. If the overall course of history could not be changed, then Mo King Wu would not be able to spend her life with Chu Yang. This was fate. It was already determined. No one can change it. This was a type of enlightenment, and a profound revelation for the ways of the heavens. In a blink of an eye, Chu Yang was suddenly enlightened. History was the focal point of the ways of the heavens. However, this enlightenment only led him to feel more indignant and violent. A bloodthirsty desire to kill surged inside him. If history could not be changed, then it would mean King Wu would still have to die. No, I will not yield. Sitting in front of him, Wu Yunliang was terrified. His eyes widened. Just a second ago, Chu Yang was quietly listening to him talk. Suddenly after, it seemed as if he fell into a mysterious state. Even though he was clearly within reach, Wu Yunliang found it unbelievable that he could not feel his breathing. Unexpectedly, there was a sudden outburst of extremely violent killing aura from his body. Wu Yunliang was so frightened he jumped to his feet. unable to maintain his original composure. The killing aura was violent that Wu Yunliang felt as if it could kill 100,000 people in one shot. Wu Yunliang also believed it. With his killing aura rising like a surging tide, Chu Yang's fists were clenched tightly and his whole body was secreting a dangerous air. A brutal bloodthirsty emotion was convulsing in his meridians. The killing aura was a mighty flood rushing through his meridians and then slammed into his Dantian like a tsunami. It tossed and turned in there as if it was a hungry tiger in a cage. At this time, Chu Yang laughed and then powerfully ripped himself from this mysterious state. This was a state from the way of the heavens, the state that millions of martial artists earnestly wished to enter, but Chu Yang has just pulled himself from it. Without any regrets, a fierce battle like violent hurricanes, it left Chu Yang shaken and disoriented. The deepest spot of his mind felt as if the force of waterfall was dumped on it. His orifices simultaneously bled. Suddenly, his eyes radiated as he let out a light roar. Who said history cannot be inverted? I want to change it. If it doesn't work one day I will try again for many days. We'll see who is more stubborn. Wu Yunliang did not know why Chu Yang suddenly roared like that. He could not help but be a little startled and took a few steps back. At this moment, the killing aura inside Chu Yang's Dantian struggled and let out a bam and dissipated. A booming voice laughed and said, "Not bad, not bad. You finally understand the nature of Nine Tribulations Sword. It is invert fate." As the voice said this, in the sky that was clear for 1,000 miles there was the sound of thunder. A column of lightning that seemed to carry the anger of all 9 heavens slammed down. Blinding white light illuminated several thousand miles, making it seem like daytime. It was infinitely spectacular. There was a thunderous boom in the mountain as it crumbled like bubbles. A few thousand blocks of rocks flew in all directions. The ground shook as if it was the apocalypse. The cave they were in was broken apart and became completely exposed. Wu Yunliang jumped and screamed in terror. His body was trembling and pouring sweat. His head was empty as his spirit seemed to have fled to the clouds. He could not make sense of what just happened. Chu Yang clearly heard a voice from his Dantian talking inside him. He was in shock and wanted to say something, but he did not know how to talk to a voice from inside his Dantian. He thought perhaps he could direct communication via his thoughts. While Chu Yang was still bewildered and did not know what to do, that voice boomed once again. Fate is rubbish. Tear it. Break it. Destiny is rubbish. Change it. Go against it. History is rubbish. Destroy it. Kill it. Ha ha ha. These ideas from inside Chu Yang carried with them extreme arrogance with an utter lack of respect for heaven and earth. Along with the thunder and lightning from the surroundings, they became even more powerful. Chu Yang's spirit was greatly disturbed. He cannot help but muttered the same words. Fate is rubbish. Tear it. Break it. Destiny is rubbish. Change it. Go against it. History is rubbish. Destroy it. Kill it. He felt these words were extremely suited to his personality, arrogant and unruly. This was the kind of feeling he wanted. That arrogant voice inside him laughed loudly and said, "Your thoughts are correct. If you want to change your destiny, from now on, change the state of this whole world. Go against it. If you cannot change destiny and invert history, then Mo King Wu will definitely still die in misery." Mua ha ha ha. Chu Yang trembled. He wanted to respond when suddenly a voice asked incredulously, "What are you saying? What's going on with you?" Startled, Chu Yang looked up to see Wu Yunliang evaluating him with a terrified look on his face. Based on his appearance, he did not hear anything that was said. Chu Yang stuttered and carefully checked all the emotions from his Dantian. He discovered that they have now all quieted. Everything that passed was like a dream. However, Chu Yang was sure it was not a dream. "I am fine." Chu Yang laughed. At this moment he discovered his body was soaked in sweat. His clothes looked like he has just walked out of a pond. "Why did you suddenly become frozen? And how did you just started sweating profusely in the blink of an eye? And your orifices bled? And what happened just now? How could there have been lightning like that? It was strong enough to break open a mountain." Still a little scared, Wu Yunliang looked up at the morning sky, and gave Chu Yang a worried look. "Chu Yang, do you have some condition you do not want to reveal?" Without waiting for an answer, he grabbed Chu Yang's wrist and checked his condition. However, After careful examination, Wu Yunliang could not find anything out of the ordinary with Chu Yang. He could not help but shook his head and said, "Strange. This disciple is also not sure. Maybe spying on those people earlier was too distressful for me. I am scared just thinking about it now." Chu Yang said meekly, Perhaps. Wu Yunliang advised, "You should not push yourself too much. If you notice that there is something abnormal with your body, you should tell your teacher immediately. If your teacher does not know what to do, then tell him to come to me." Chu Yang immediately agreed. Inside, he was still puzzled about those phrases: invert history, invert destiny, invert fate. If you want to change your destiny, you must go against it. I will go against it immediately. Chu Yang was quietly grinding his teeth. So be it. Mother, I am not afraid of this rubbish. If I want to go against it, then how should I do it? We should go elsewhere to continue this conversation. Wu Yunliang held Chu Yang and flew out of the area. The earlier commotion had drawn many people toward that spot. The two went round about for a while before finding an area convenient for their conversation. Chu Yang laughed to himself. A master of Beyond the Heavens sect has to go winding all over the place in his own territory. This was like a thief stealing from his own home. This feeling was indescribably entertaining. "You heard everything I said earlier?" Wu Yunliang asked. "What do you think?" Things started to move quickly in Chu Yang's head. He remained quietly for a while and then said thoughtfully, "Sect Master, you say that if they wanted to use conflict to unify all under the heavens, then we should oblige them and use that momentum." Wu Yunliang's eyes was revealed admiration. "Correct. Continue." Chu Yang carefully thought everything through and said slowly, "Once the two nations go to war, then we do not necessarily lose our opportunity. But Iron Cloud will have probably lost theirs. So Sect Master's idea is to use this chaos to find a way for Beyond the Heavens sect to live in peace." Exactly. Wu Yunliang's admiration grew as he continued, "In all these plans, one person is key. This person is not Daewoo King Ru, but is Taibutan." Chu Yang mused, "Anyone may die, but Taibutan may not." Correct. Taibutan only need to not die then with his authority and ability. He can organize the troops to go to war with Daewoo King Ru and protect Iron Cloud. Chu Yang said, "Thus, when the war ends, even if Great Zhao wins, they would not fare well. They would not have the power to take Limitless Nation. In fact, with the great damage incurred, they would probably worry about Limitless Nation attacking them. So Daewoo King Ru would not dare command such reckless action." Very well said. Wu Yunliang clapped. He looked at Chu Yang as if he has just discovered a precious treasure. Therefore, this battle under the heavens is strange in that it depends on only two people, Taibutan and Daewoo King Ru. And the thing Daewoo King Ru is worried about most is none other than Taibutan. So regardless of everything else, and even if he has to maneuver things 1,000 times, he has to kill Taibutan first. Therefore, it is our responsibility to protect the life of Taibutan. Because we went over from Great Zhou, if Taibutan dies, we would be the top suspect. Most likely, we would be first to face the fierce revenge of Iron Cloud Nation. Plus, Great Zhou would absolutely not let traitors like us stay alive either. Chu Yang analyzed for a bit and realized that all the plans seemed to revolve around the life and death of one person, Taibutan. A youth of 17 years could become a thorn in the eyes of a world wonder like Daewoo King Ru. What kind of monster was this youth? In his previous life, Chu Yang only knew that Taibutan was assassinated at Primordial Gorge. He also knew that this person had an extraordinary reputation. But at the time, he did not pay much attention and just ignored these things. Now that he was carefully reanalyzing things, it did seem a bit frightening. A 17 years old who is already comparable to Daewoo King Ru. Definitely not of an ordinary type. This reminded Chu Yang of another legend of Upper Three Heavens, infinitely excellent Saber Master Liu Yongxiang. This worldly talent, if still living, would be a legendary martial artist saint, a sheer talent who would not pale in comparison to Daewoo King Ru. There was also, in Middle Three Heavens, a character who spent a lifetime stirring heaven and earth, Aoxian, already world-renowned at a young age. Finally, there was one who controlled the dark side of Middle Three Heavens, a female of unknown appearance, the mysterious Junzaizu. These people along with Taibutan and Daewoo Kingru were all heaven-sent talents that were hard to find in thousands of years. It was lucky that they were separated into 3 different regions. If not, it would be hard to imagine what kind of chaotic state the world would be thrown into. There is still one thing that you have taken lightly. Wu Yunliang looked at him admiringly. We only need to help Taibutan to defeat Daewoo Kingru, then we would have done a great deed comparable to leaders who helped found countries. At that time, Beyond the Heavens sect would be able to rise high in position. Moreover, with the appropriate planning, we could even eliminate all of Beyond the Heavens sect's hidden dangers at the same time. Chu Yang gave a pained laugh. Defeating Daewoo Kingru? Easier said than done. For Daewoo Kingru, regardless if it is political or battle strategy, the status remained undefeated. Want to beat him? Challenging. Chu Yang thought inward and immediately realized, Wu Yunliang is right. If I am determined to go against fate in this life, then I cannot avoid facing Daewoo Kingru. And if I continue to hold on to the idea that Daewoo Kingru cannot not be beaten, then what the heck would I be fighting? I must win. At least, help Taibutan stay alive to screw up Daewoo Kingru's plans. I will hold all of fate's changes in the palm of my hand, regardless if it is because of Beyond the Heavens sect or Dantian. There is also Master. There is also King Wu. Chu Yang was simmering in his determination when he heard Wu Yunliang sighed and said slowly, speaking of this, Chu Yang, in this you have made a huge mistake. With this one mistake you have thrown my carefully prepared plans into chaos. Even at the most basic level, it cannot proceed any further. Chu Yang stuttered in horror. What mistake did I make? He thought to himself. I didn't do anything. Why did I suddenly become a terrible criminal? You killed Shi Qianshan. You killed him too soon. Wu Yunliang sighed. Shi Qianshan was an indispensable link in my plans. Chu Yang raised his brows. Shi Qianshan? Exactly. Even though Shi Qianshan was underhanded and cunning, he could be seen as a mature adept. Moreover, he was good at kissing up to people. We may look down on his tactics, but he was really the most appropriate candidate to mingle in the royal court. Wu Yunliang sighed again. Mingle in the royal court? Chu Yang was shocked. What does mingling in the court have to do with this? I wanted to have a person completely detached from Beyond the Heavens sect and enter Iron Cloud Nation under a secret identity, and, if possible, become the prince's confidant. First, to ensure the safety of the prince. Second, if things are successful, this person will become the representative for Beyond the Heavens sect in the court. Wu Yunliang said wearily, live or die. We have to rise. To take on such a great venture, we simply cannot just go forward as a simple Jianghu sect anymore. When the time comes, if there is no one to speak for us in the court, then any big accomplishment would mean nothing. At key moments, we must have someone like that. You can easily buy politicians with gold and other benefits. The only thing is you cannot trust them. Chu Yang nodded in agreement. If they can be bought by you, then they can be bought by others, even by Daewoo Kingru. That is too dangerous. A person you can trust is best. I had planned to send Shi Qianshan to Iron Cloud. However, you killed him. Wu Yunliang grumbled. Shi Qianshan dared to poison his own teacher. At the critical moment, it would not be difficult for him to sell out the sect. In truth, I believe my killing him helped eliminate a hidden tragedy. Chu Yang opposed fiercely. It was now time for negotiation. Hearing his tune, Chu Yang already knew what Wu Yunliang has planned for him. He naturally did not want someone leading him by the nose. Even though this matched his goals and his heart was already set, how could he ignore such rare opportunity to establish a good position? I originally wanted to appoint 2 quick-witted people, one to Great Zhao and one to Iron Cloud. The person who goes to Great Zhao would be in charge of gathering information and also, if the sect falls into danger, help save some people to extend our lineage. However, after some thoughts, I abandoned that plan. Having an exit strategy no matter what the situation turns out to be is not necessarily a good thing. It is harder to apply all of your determination with an exit strategy. Shi Qianshan, you killed him too soon. Wu Yunliang lamented, repeating the same words again. Yes, too soon. Internally, Chu Yang also had this feeling. I have observed you these past few days. Wu Yunliang said, Chu Yang, you are thoughtful, and have great foresights. You are decisive and thick-skinned. When taking action, you seize your opportunity and do not hesitate. Those characters are for doing great things. You are 100 times better than Qianshan in many aspects. However, there are 3 good points that Qianshan had and you are deficient in. 3 good points? Chu Yang nodded and said, first, being dishonorable. Second, following whichever direction the wind blows, smoothing whiskers and patting the horse's bottom. DLN, to use flattery to achieve goals. I just thought this was a weird idiom and wanted to share. Third, using any means to achieve the goal. Very good. Wu Yunliang clapped forcefully. Do you believe that these things are despicable? That they cannot even be called good points? They should even be called horrible? No, this disciple do not think so. Chu Yang said seriously, however, I will absolutely not be like that. I have my own limits in everything I do. Right, these 3 things on an ordinary person is an abhorrent pile of dog poop. But on a person mingling in the court playing with politics, then they are the basic foundation for playing a good game. Wu Yunliang smiled mockingly. Since the time you were in that fight with Qing, I secretly observed you every 3 days. You did very well. You were aware of your own shortcomings and steadfastly observed Qianshan. From him, you found ways to offset these deficiencies. I was really happy. Wu Yunliang sighed. Unfortunately, Qianshan was tempted by demons and finally buried himself. The only thing was you killed him too soon. If you had let Qianshan continue to ask for forgiveness, he would have cried streams of tears and found hundreds of reasons. In the end, even if you still wanted to kill him, you would naturally feel that his reasons, strangely enough, are not without basis. This would have been a really important lesson. But you took action and lost this opportunity. Wu Yunliang continued. Human life is always full of adversity. Struggling alone in the whirlpool of political games while carrying a secret identity and mission, you will face the risk of being flooded to your head with danger. At these critical times, how to ask for forgiveness is most important. You need to be able to keep your life, then you can plan on other things. Chu Yang was quiet for a moment and asked in a deep voice, Sect Master, what you said. Can you do them? Even if you could do them, would you? Wu Yunliang was stunned. A long time passed before Wu Yunliang laughed sadly. He sighed and said, I cannot do that either. That's right. If you cannot do it yourself, what right do you have to ask it of others? After a pause, Wu Yunliang continued, regardless, you have already killed Qianshan, so you have to replace him in this task. No more arguments about it. You will go and complete this task. In other words, you go forth and work hard for your future, and, in the process, help beyond the heavens sect. Chu Yang became taciturn. Once I accept this task, I will completely diverge from my previous life. Moreover, I will have to face an awe-inspiring foe, Daiwu Qingru. Only, this is my life's mission. If I want to change destiny and save Mo Qingwu, I must defeat Daiwu Qingru. Invert destiny. However, Chu Yang was currently just a simple Jianghu character. Defeating a world-renowned character like Daiwu Qingru right now would be as difficult as flying to heaven. Chu Yang had originally thought that once he was reborn, he would at least hold knowledge over everything that happened in the previous life and use that to live a glorious life in this lifetime. But after this, he came to realize that his life would once again fall into endless uncertainty, whether it was the danger or the enlightenment. Compared to the previous life, it was already over 100-fold more. Change the major events of the world with the force of one person. 9 chances of death, 1 chance of life and many hidden dangers. Confronting destiny, confronting fate, confronting history, and even confronting the way of heaven. Chu Yang cannot retreat. For King Wu, for Master, for myself, and for the fact that I do care for the rubbish destiny that fate has planned for me, I must invert it. I will go. Chu Yang said gravely. His sword-like brows stood up and his lips pursed as if he was carrying 1,000 pounds on his back. Wu Yunliang has just relaxed a little when he heard Chu Yang continued, but I have one condition. What condition? Speak. If the sect could do it, then you can have it. Even if you want this old man to bow in front of you, I will. Wu Yunliang relaxed once again. I want to enter Seven Shades congregation grounds. Chu Yang lifted his head high and his eyes flashed bright like an electric current. I do not want to compete for the title of top disciple, nor do I want the position of sect master. I just want to increase my power a little. If you can allow this, I will go to Iron Cloud. Not a problem. I will let you in tomorrow. Wu Yunliang took 2 unhurried steps when his eyes suddenly flashed with the opportunistic decision. Chu Yang was excited. Nine Tribulations Sword. You are almost mine. Nine Tribulations Sword was the key to inverting destiny. It was also the biggest hidden card in Chu Yang's hand. An absolute force. Once you go on this mission, I will erase all traces of you ever being at Beyond the Heavens sect. From then on, you are no longer a disciple of Beyond the Heavens sect. This task is extremely dangerous. You need to accomplish it alone. I can only supply you with checks for 30,000 tals and a good sword. As for things to support your cultivation, I will secretly give them to you myself whenever we make contact. Wu Yunliang exhaled and said, our opponent is none other than Dai Wu King Ru. We absolutely cannot be careless in anything. If Iron Cloud does not fall, then Beyond the Heavens sect will rise. On the part of you, Chu Yang, you can be a minister in Iron Cloud if it is your fate. That is your own future. Of course, if you choose to return to the sect when the time comes, we would welcome you. As for the sect's ranking competition, it is just a ruse to attract attention from outside. It is essentially a little game, not worth anything to you. I just hope that, no matter what happens, you will not forget what I have told you today. Chu Yang nodded solemnly. Currently, Qian is already at Iron Cloud Citadel. The others, Ninth Martial Uncle, Xu Yi, and Mu Shang do not know you. I will tell Qian what she needs to do. No, just let me talk to her. Chu Yang directly rebuffed. You've got to be kidding. If I am to change my identity, then not letting anyone know is the best plan. To make it perfect, after I changed my identity, even Wu Yunliang should not know. Then it should be absolutely safe. As for the materials necessary for cultivation that Wu Yunliang promised, I will just see how the situation plays out. I only need to have the first fragment of Nine Tribulations Sword in hand. Then what worry would I have about cultivation materials? Chu Yang finally clearly understood why Wu Qian liked Shi Qian-shan in the previous life. It was because Shi Qian-shan took on this mission and had a chance to be with Wu Qian. Even if he did not take on this mission, Chu Yang would still have to make a trip to Iron Cloud Nation. This was because the second fragment of the Nine Tribulations Sword was located in an extremely secret location within the citadel of Iron Cloud Nation. In the previous life, Chu Yang happened to be traveling by the citadel of Iron Cloud after the nation has fallen. Thanks to the sense of the first sword fragment, he found the second. It was more than a year after obtaining the first fragment and increasing his cultivation many times that he finally obtained it. Nine Tribulations Sword has strict hierarchical restrictions. If his cultivation level was not high enough and he had strong contact with the second fragment, then he could suffer from serious consequences. The morning of the day after, Men Jiaoran stood in front of Purple Bamboo Forest and looked at the disciple that he has such high hope for. For the longest time, he did not say a word. After a long time, he emotionally sighed. Chu Yang, this time you definitely have 9 chances of death and 1 chance of life. Moreover, you will be in a strange place without anyone, even with food, clothing, housing, and navigating in dangerous situations. You can only rely on yourself. He paused and looked at Chu Yang a while before saying, Did you think about this thoroughly? Chu Yang wanted to answer when Men Jiaoran waved his arm to stop him. You do not need to answer so quickly. Think carefully first. With your master here, whatever you do not want to do, no one can force you. If you don't want to, I will find the sect master and ask him to withdraw his order right away. Chu Yang was touched. He was critical point where he has to make one of the most important decisions of his life. And Men Jiaoran, who was always composed over 1,000 things, has finally lost control and shown his deep feelings. There are many things in life that we know we cannot do but still have to. Just as there are many things we know we should avoid but still cannot avoid. It was Master who told me that we must have something in life to protect and care for. Chu Yang said sincerely, This mission I am undertaking is because of the things I want to protect. I must do it. Men Ran remained quiet. After a long time, he walked toward Chu Yang and patted his shoulder. As he lifted his arm, it seemed to stop midair. Men Ran softly lowered his arm and straightened the hem of Chu Yang's shirt and smoothed out a few wrinkles. Afterward, he took a few steps back and looked quietly at Chu Yang for a moment. Finally, he turned away and looked up at the sky with folded arms. He breathed a deep sigh. Master. With a surge of warmth inside him, Chu Yang could not help but call out. A long while later, Men Ran waved his sleeve, and spoke with a husky voice, "Good. I will bring you to gathering cloud speak to Seven Shades congregation grounds." After saying so he started to march away without turning back. Men Ran did not dare to turn around. He was afraid his disciple would discover his inner weakness. He only had 3 disciples in his whole life. A few days ago, the first disciple betrayed him and died. Currently, the second disciple was about to embark on an uncertain journey, one that would certainly be with 1,000 difficulties and 1 chance of life. How could this make any teacher feel reassured? Teacher and student aimed toward the direction of gathering clouds peak and went silently. Men Ran in the front, Chu Yang in the back. Neither one opened their mouths. Walking early in the morning, the mountain wind was chilly to the bone. The two felt as if the weather today was extremely bleak, as if it was carrying with it a burdensome sense of separation. After a long moment, the mountain came into view and Chu Yang finally opened his mouth. Master, Dantian, he still doesn't know about this. Don't worry. I will take really good care of him. Men Ran said coldly, from now on, I will treat him like I would an only child. After all, if you die, I can only rely on Dantian to take care of me in my old age. Chu Yang held his tongue and did not dare say anything else, but he was completely reassured. Chu Yang clearly understood. Even though Men Ran was not expressive, he got Chu Yang's intention. With those words, Dantian would surely remain safe and sound. As they were crossing the mountain gate, the disciples watching the gate saw Men Ran's cold and unhappy face. It seemed like a bag of volatile explosive, so they dared not say one word but simply let the two pass. Wu Yunliang was already waiting at the door. Today, all of the disciples were sent to Locking Cloud's Peak for evaluations. This was Wu Yunliang's tactic to keep things secretive for Chu Yang. Seeing Wu Yunliang, Men Ran's gaze became cold but he did not say anything. Wu Yunliang gave a pained laugh. He too did not bother with words, but said curtly, "Follow me," and led the way. On the way into the main hall, they passed the ancestral altar. Wu Yunliang quietly reached out his arm and opened a secret doorway, and led the two in. The passage was winding downward like a cave going deep into the heart of the mountain. Then suddenly, a majestic hall appeared. In front of this hall was a carved green jade door. The temperature here was extremely cold. "Your master and I will wait here. Only one person can enter Seven Shades congregation grounds at any time. Go by yourself. How much power you can harvest will depend entirely on you. Once you go through this door, keep walking straight forward. After going through 7 doors like this, you will have reached Seven Shades congregation grounds. Remember, if you feel you are unable to handle the cold in there, you must come back out immediately. You absolutely cannot force your body beyond its limits to gain more power." Chu Yang nodded in reply and looked up at the tall jade door. There was a flash of sharpness in his gaze. His Dantian was bouncing with excitement, as if it had just sensed something. Nine Tribulations Sword spirit inside him suddenly started spinning wildly. It was like an excited child that has just gotten its favorite toy. Looking at Chu Yang going through the door, Wu Yunliang and Men Ran stood shoulder to shoulder but did not say anything. After half a day, Men Ran finally said quietly, "Eldest martial brother, do you know who Chu Yang is?" Wu Yunliang remained taciturn and did not say anything. "Chu Yang, I took him in when he was only 3 months old. I stayed by his side every day, nurturing and raising him. It has been like that all these years. Calling me his teacher is not quite accurate. I am his father and mother as well. His name was given by me." Chu Yang, early morning light, shining sunrise, this was the representation of my biggest hope in life. "Eldest martial brother, do you understand?" "I understand. Wu Yunliang sighed heavily. You still don't understand. Men Zhaoran was standing bleakly when he suddenly turned and, without warning, palmed Wu Yunliang in the face. Bam! Wu Yunliang was pushed backward, but, surprisingly, he did not let out a sound. Without a care, Men Zhaoran jumped up and continued with an aggressive kick in Wu Yunliang's stomach, sending him to the ground. Then he landed on this sect master and started to pour down a shower of punches. The sound of the punches rang out. In this area more than 10 meters underground, the two did not say a word. Men Zhaoran has let out all his aggressions on the sect master. From the beginning to end, Wu Yunliang did not say anything, nor did he fight back. When Men Zhaoran had landed more than 100 punches, he stopped. The master of Beyond the Heavens sect's face was swollen like a pig and his whole body was covered with bruises. Junior Marshal brother. Now, this is the real you. It has been 20 years. I finally get go see you lose control. These past years, you remained cold and emotionless. It was really annoying. Ha ha ha, hack. Wu Yunliang sprawled on the ground coughing. He continued, that's why I let you beat me up, even if it was worse, it would be worth it. I am really happy. If something happens to Chu Yang, I will help you feel really happy every day as cheerful as this one. Men Zhaoran stood up and said casually, Junior Marshal brother, no only Chu Yang, but even you and I are drowning in this vortex as well. No one's survival is certain. This is the destiny of our Beyond the Heavens sect. Wu Yunliang arduously stood up, with just a little movement. His whole body was sored. He could not help but gasp and complained, You. Damn it. You don't even have a little love. With HMPH. Men Zhaoran turned around and looked at the green jade door. His countenance was anxious as he sank into deep thoughts. His gaze grew more and more conflicted. Chu Yang walked straight forward. On the two sides are the rock walls that are single smooth pearls placed at a distance from each other. They seemed to emit a dim light. Deep underground, this made people feel as if it was a dream. The Nine Tribulations Sword spirit in his Dantian became more agitated, as if it was finally meeting a loved one that it has not seen in a long time. As the second jade door opened, the icy cold air became colder. If a normal person came to this place, he would have to activate his internal energy to be able to withstand it. However, Chu Yang did not feel any discomfort. It was quite the opposite. He felt comfortable from head to toe. Internally, Chu Yang was fortified like a stone block. Every step was steady, without any hint of hesitation. The third door, the fourth door. Every step Chu Yang took was even. His breathing was stable. This showed that he continued to maintain his alertness like it was any normal day, and he was not mesmerized by the number one rarity under the heaven that was Nine Tribulations Sword. The fifth door opened. The sixth door. Chu Yang did not change even a bit. Suddenly, there was a sigh from inside him. The mysterious booming voice has once again spoken. Your personality completely matches with Nine Tribulations Sword. It seems your previous life was full of suffering and killing, polishing you from a rough gemstone into a precious jewel that glitters and shines. Chu Yang's legs did not stop walking. He asked internally, who are you, person or demon? It was this same voice that arrogantly said things like invert fate and then disappeared. And no matter how Chu Yang tried, it did not come out again. But today, under these circumstances, it has unexpected came out of nowhere. However, when Chu Yang asked, that voice once again became incognito. A long time passed and it did not answer his question. When Chu Yang finally pushed open the seventh door, TLN, author wrote ninth. But I am pretty sure he meant seventh, that voice said in exhaustion. I am currently very weak, every word I say is very draining. Chu Yang, hurry up and get the second Nine Tribulations Sword fragment. Second fragment? Yes, second fragment. Energy of heaven and earth, heaven's talent and earthly treasure, rare material, etc. are the things essential to Nine Tribulations Sword. They are also what I need to recover my strength. That voice became lower and lower, more and more faint, as if it could dissipate in the air at any moment. Help me, I can help you invert this fate. The voice disappeared as if it has just used up the last drop of energy. Currently, Chu Yang was standing outside the last door. the door in the deepest place, the seventh door. DLN, wrote ninth again, still sure he meant seventh, 7 doors, 7 shades. The inside was empty, but an icy cold air that seemed capable of instantly freezing a person rushed in from all directions. It surrounded Chu Yang, and not long after formed a layer of white frost. Nine Tribulations Sword inside the Dantian became violently agitated. The cold air was like a boundless tide cascading into Chu Yang's body. It followed his meridians and poured straight into Nine Tribulations Sword spirit. For 4 full hours, Chu Yang did not even move one bit. The cold air fiercely and continuously flowed into his body. After 4 hours like that, the cold air finally weakened. At that moment, Chu Yang felt his body had recovered its ability to move. He carefully observed his surrounding and took one step toward the left. His Dantian cramped up immediately as if trying to stop him from toward that direction. He took one step to the right and Nine Tribulations Sword emitted a joyfulness. When he took 7 or 8 more steps and came next to the rock wall, the Nine Tribulations Sword spirit quieted, but this was the quiet of extreme excitement. This is the spot. Chu Yang looked at the solid wall and thought about how to get the sword point out. It was buried deep within. At this moment, the Nine Tribulations Sword spirit inside his Dantian suddenly surged up with an aggressive impulse. The kind of impulse that was so strong that it made Chu Yang heart pound almost to the point that it could jump out of his chest. He gritted his teeth and decided that even if he could not do it, he must. Chu Yang turned his arm. With a swoosh, he pulled out his sword. Then he started to activate his internal energy and directed it into the sword. Suddenly, the cold energy that was absorbed by Nine Tribulations Sword spirit inside his Dantian poured out into the sword on its own. Within a moment, the ordinary sword became iridescent and transparent and emitted a brilliant light, shining its light over the entire cave as if it was daylight. Swoosh! Chu Yang swung the sword on the wall to test it out. He wanted to see how tough it was before deciding on what to do next. But he certainly did not expect that a light swing of the sword would send it into the wall like it was tofu. One swoosh and, with the exception of the hilt, the entire sword was in the wall. Chu Yang was extremely happy. Why is it so soft? He tried to pick at the wall with his hand but, of course, it did not give. Chu Yang kept trying until the tips of his fingers were hurt and numb before he realized that the unnatural cold energy was this stone wall's weakness. With the sword full of cold energy, Chu Yang slashed into the wall and using force, he made a deep cut about 3 feet across. After that, he made 3 more cuts creating a rectangle on the wall. Chu Yang threw his sword aside, and placed his hands on the rectangle he just created. He activated his internal energy and pulled. With a swish, the few 100-pound block followed his hands and left the wall. It dropped on the ground. Without resting, Chu Yang continually slashed the wall. Blocks after blocks was removed from the wall, lying in a pile on the ground. Not too much time passed before he was drenched in sweat. On the ground, there was now almost 100 of such blocks. The sword slashed deep into the wall once more, when suddenly a chink sound emanated out. Nine Tribulations Sword spirit also made a pop, and suddenly jumped and spun inside his Dantian. It currently had such extreme excitement that seemed to be uncontrollable. The sword point. Finally, after pulling out a large block, Chu Yang's eyes narrowed. Underneath that stone block was the sword point, laying quietly and glowing. Its length was about that of a palm. It was pointy and sharp. The sides had a silvery white luster, but the rest of it seemed to be covered in a pink metallic sheen. This was the blood radiance, characteristic of weapons made specifically for killing. An ancient, fierce aura surrounded the sword point. There was no sheath covering and protecting it. Even though the sword point fragment has been lying like that for who knows how many years, it was still shiny. Moreover, the surface has a faint glow surrounding it. Chu Yang can only feel his dry lips, and his heart beating like a drum. He immediately regained his composure, then reached out and grabbed the sword point. The moment the sword point touched his hand, Chu Yang suddenly raised his eyebrows. Sweat started to pour out. The sword point has been buried for so many years. Ordinarily, it should have been cold to the touch. However, When Chu Yang touched it, he realized it was burning hot. With Chu Yang's body current full of cold energy, it was a total contrast. Cold and hot were antagonistic. A thick fog started to rise in the stone room. Everything was barely visible. In addition, an ancient violent aura was suddenly emitted. The sword point in Chu Yang's hand started to aggressively struggle as if it wanted to cut his hand and fly away. Chu Yang activated his internal energy as his whole body vigorously resisted. He became extremely annoyed. In the previous life, I was able to get the Nine Tribulations Sword point without any such demonic incident. Why is everything different in this life? The force of the sword point's struggle became stronger and stronger. Chu Yang was starting to feel that he could no longer hang on. Finally, the sword point bounced in his hand. Chu Yang frowned. It made a deep gash in his hand. At this moment the sword point was ready to fly away. If it had managed this, it was likely that Chu Yang will not have the ability to find it again in this lifetime. Just that moment, there was a feeling of rage from Chu Yang's Dantian. The Nine Tribulations Sword spirit seemed to have rushed out. It left the Dantian and went into the meridians. In the blink of an eye, it was at Chu Yang's hand. Right afterward, a strange ancient force from Chu Yang's palm suddenly flowed into the point of Nine Tribulations Sword. The sword point that was struggling and trying to break free became docile after contact with this ancient force. The cold energy on Chu Yang's body suddenly disappeared. The heat from the sword point was also gone in a flash. Then the point of Nine Tribulations Sword in his hand abruptly radiated brightly with an ancient blood-colored light that shot straight up, and with a swoosh, it disappeared. After that, Chu Yang started to notice that the sword point slowly calmed down. After a second, an even stranger event happened. The sword point that was shining brightly now has mysteriously disappeared in Chu Yang's hand. In his Dantian, the surreal Nine Tribulation Sword spirit suddenly quivered as the point materialized. The sword point has returned home. After another second, Chu Yang's mind was fogged by ancient thought. It was as if someone was speaking from deep inside him. One ray of light can pierce thousands, killing all under the heaven. For what? A sharp will buried deep will not change. Gather mountains and clouds to rule over all. There were suddenly these testaments inside Chu Yang along with a strange feeling. Chu Yang was unsettled. His thoughts went to carefully evaluating internally. Chu Yang abruptly realized that these testaments were verses from the Nine Tribulations Transcending Nine Heavens technique that he had memorized in his previous life. A mysterious force from the Nine Tribulations Sword point in his Dantian shot out. It blended with his bones, meridians, blood, muscles, and entire body. During a moment of unconsciousness, Chu Yang martial cultivation suddenly increased. He has just broke through grade 1 martial warrior. He was now grade 3 martial warrior. In addition, it stopped at the peak. He could almost break through. Within moments, he regained his clarity and composure. At the same time, there suddenly appeared the shape of a martial artist in Chu Yang's mind. With sword in hand, the shape slowly illustrated the sword stances. From action to action, the demonstration was smooth as flowing water. Chu Yang was mesmerized. These sword stances, he already knew in his previous life. However, he had never managed to truly master them. But now, looking at this, he felt as if there was a supernatural force helping him to understand the hidden mysteries that had eluded him before. With his previous lifetime, Chu Yang also got the energy and the testaments just like this time. But the feeling that he got from this lifetime was completely different. In his previous life, no matter how hard he tried, it did not feel exactly right. Regardless of what he did, he could not truly comprehend it. It was as if there was a thin veil that he could not pierce. Currently, Chu Yang could understand all the teachings easily. Every meticulous detail and every little advancement was like a clear stream flowing slowly through him. Transparent and articulate. This was with Nine Tribulations Sword Spirit's support. A privilege given to the true owner of Nine Tribulations Sword. Chu Yang closed his eyes and sank deep into this strange state. However, he did not know that the moment the point of the Nine Tribulations Sword advanced into his Dantian and the four testaments arose in his mind, a colorless light shot from the center of beyond the heavens sects gathering clouds peak straight into the sky. Afterward, there was a great commotion. Suddenly, Dark clouds started to gather on the whole firmament of the lower three heavens. In the blink of an eye, the sky was completely covered. The whole continent fell into darkness. One could not even see what was in front of them. It was morning, only a little over 2 hours before noon. However, it was pitch black. The whole continent was terrified. Great Zhao Nation, the Prime Minister's mansion. From the outside, this minister's mansion looked extremely ordinary, as if it belonged to some low-ranking official. The area was not too big, and the decor was plain. The guards did not seem too prestigious either. However, this was the resident of the one and only talented Daewoo King Ru. At the moment the sky turned black, there was chaos in all four directions. But in the Prime Minister's mansion all was quiet, as if there was nothing extraordinary happening. It was morning and this event was unpredictable. But the people here seemed as if they were already prepared. All lights were lit. In the library, a scholar a little over 30 years old sat neatly. His simple clothing was elegant. His handsome face was graceful. His gaze was profound and powerful like 100 rivers flowing into the sea. It seemed as if he could look down at the thousands of things that happened in life and not miss anything. The moment the sky turned black, this person seemed to have already perceived something. He immediately stood up, went to the window, and quietly looked up at the sky. Despite the sky suddenly turning black, that scholar remained standing motionless by the window with his hands clasped. It was not until a servant tiptoed in to light a candle and the lights all over the manor was lit, that he frowned and went back to his desk. His eyes seemed to be staring into a void, as he thought about something. "Prime Minister, Official Dong is requesting an audience with you." Without a sound, a man appeared out of nowhere and reported ceremoniously, "Dong Nufa, let him in." This scholar was the #1 official, under one but above millions, of Great Zhao Nation, Daewoo King Ru. Within moments, a tall and lean man walked in. "Prime Minister is well. Have a seat." Daewoo King Ru gently waved his arm, looking intensely at the flickering candlelight on the table. He said quietly, "What brought Official Dong here?" "It is because of none other than the strange phenomenon that I came." Dong Nufa's build was tall, with large hands like fans. His face was thin with prominent, high cheekbones. His eyes were sharp like that of hawks. Anyone who looked at his eyes would immediately think of the scavenging vultures in the deserts. This person was the most powerful official in Great Zhao Nation's military. In coming here, Dong Nufa has represented both the scholarly and military officials of Great Zhao Nation. In a typical royal court, the leaders of two sides would be like water and fire, incapable of coexisting. However, here was the total opposite. In terms of age, Dong Nufa was older than Daewoo King Ru, but Daewoo King Ru was the person Dong Nufa respected most. Strange phenomenon? Yes, it was definitely a strange phenomenon. There appeared a trace of worry on Daewoo King Ru's graceful face as he uttered softly. After finishing, his eyes dropped a little as if mulling over something. He drummed the desk with his fingers making soft tapping sounds. The whole study was quiet. Dong Nufa sat erect facing Daewoo King Ru. He remained quiet, not daring to disturb Daewoo King Ru's thoughts. A long time passed by. The black clouds slowly dispersed and the sky became bright again. Daewoo King Ru clasped his hands and stood up. He slowly walked toward the window. He looked up and muttered, 1 hour. The black clouds gathered and the sky became dark. Heaven and earth became mixed up. Just now, it seemed like heaven and earth opened up. About 1 hour. Such a strange phenomenon is truly rare in history. Prime Minister, is some major event about to happen? Dong Nufa's face paled. Daewoo King Ru looked up at the sky. A flash of fear appeared in his eyes and immediately disappeared. Sitting behind him, Dong Nufa did not catch this. Daewoo King Ru slowly turned around and said with a smile, "Nothing. It is not clear why heaven and earth became mixed up. Fate has become chaotic. All of the future can no longer be predicted. Even with your astrology skill, you still cannot see the future." Dong Nufa suddenly stood up, his eyes revealing a look of anxiety. Regardless of anything that might happen, Great Zhao's destiny to unite all under the heaven was already extremely clear. Even though Daewoo King Ru's voice was soft, it was confident. With certainty, he said, "Everything will proceed as we had planned." He momentarily paused and then lightly added, "Speed it up." Yes. Even though Daewoo Kingru's voice sounded normal, its sharp aura made Dong Yufa feel completely reassured. It was as if only Daewoo Kingru's words were needed to make the sky falling down seem like a small matter. You should go then. Daewoo Kingru smiled warmly. Yes, I will leave now. Dong Yufa stood up, turned around and walked out. Looking at his silhouette disappearing, Daewoo Kingru's smiling face suddenly became suspicious and mysterious. He muttered, how could this be? The signs were bright like the noon sun. How could this one event of heaven and earth becoming mixed up have given the enemy a chance to live? Daewoo Kingru leisurely paced around the study. After a long while, he suddenly formed a fist with his left arm and placed it in front of his chest. His eyes became fierce. The candle is almost extinguished in the wind. What's another little spark? Under Daewoo Kingru's hand, how could you form a big fire? His gaze narrowed as if he just came to some sort of decision. He raised his brow and yelled, come. With just that simple phrase, it was awe-inspiring. In Iron Cloud Nation, the heaven-sent Taibutan also was deep in contemplations as he looked at the sky. His face carried a serious look unsuited to his age. Chaos. Everything is in chaos. Taibutan muttered. He shook his head and could not help but smiled. This chess game under the heavens. Daewoo Kingru. Daewoo Kingru. Can you still grasp the situation now? When he said this, Taibutan's usually serious face unexpectedly seemed a little playful, even, for a moment, charming. Not only was the lower three heavens, but the sky of middle three heavens and upper three heavens at the same time also became dark. In fact, even in distant places of legends also showed signs. In a wild place of ice, when the sky started growing dark, a pillar of enormous energy suddenly shot down from above. It dispersed the black clouds from a large area and hit a large iceberg, causing it to burst. A black shadow shot straight into the sky. Then it looked around in all four directions. Then, as if it had determined that what it had been waiting for was appeared, it suddenly lifted its head and laughed. The time for our saintly family to born again has come, he shouted. Suddenly, he kneeled on the ice, looked up at the sky, and said with tearful eyes, Nine Tribulations seems like nothing. Invert heaven, then the sky will shine, the saintly family will rise. Heaven, oh, heaven. This curse has bound us for a few thousand years. A few thousand years. In the mournful cold wind, his voice echoed and lingered in this place of ice and emptiness for a long time. His everlasting desolation, after being relieved of such a heavy burden, were clear as the wind and ice. Children, let's play an earth-shattering game with this nine heavens. Ha ha ha. The black shadow's roar sounded like thunder. Sounds of cheer rose up from all directions. At that time, the dominant families of upper three heavens and middle three heavens were having secret meetings. However, their topics were all one, the strange phenomenon. The world is about to change. The youths of our family should use this opportunity to enter Jianghu to cultivate. If not, our family would be endangered by these changes and collapse. Nine tribulations has appeared. The clouds danced. Thousands of tribulations gone, thousands of stars cried in anguish. The world changed. People's lives are like nothing. This was heaven's decree. Outstanding youths must immediately enter Jianghu. In this journey of cultivation in Jianghu, you must use all your ability to beat the descendants of other families. No matter what tactics you use, you must beat them. You must remember this. The world is about to go through a big change. At this time fate will have a big effect on the rise and fall of all the dominant families. You youths are the representative of our family's destiny. At each meeting, these words were carefully instructed to the descendants of each family. Of course, there was also another extremely important point. These words were repeatedly told to every youths in each family. Find the owner of Nine Tribulations Sword. If you could be friends, then use everything to support this person. If you can only be enemies, then destroy him at all costs. The world was in shock. All plans and decisions were made and finalized within an hour. Chu Yang was still currently underground. He did not know that Nine Tribulations Sword's appearance has caused the whole world to change. He especially did not know that, because of this, The fate of many powerful people have been changed. All these things absolutely did not happen in the previous life. Chu Yang placed the blocks back to the wall and turned to Jade door to exit. When he walked past the door, the stone room was filled with icy cold air. At a glance, there was no difference. However, Chu Yang knew it was different. Even though it was still the Nine Shades congregation grounds, it was now missing the aura of the Nine Tribulations Sword. Within the Seven Shades congregation grounds, there was an artifact of an extremely cold characteristic buried underground. In his previous life, it was not until he reached the upper three heavens that Chu Yang accidentally discovered this secret. Now that Chu Yang had obtained the Nine Tribulations Sword point fragment, he had no intentions whatsoever towards the artifact that created the Seven Shades congregation grounds. Let Beyond the Heavens sect keep this power source. Besides, this time Chu Yang had absorbed the cold energy that Seven Shades congregation grounds had stored up for many decades. Even though the Nine Tribulations Sword has taken it all up, Chu Yang could use it at will with his own power. There was no difference. This was the benefit for the owner of the Nine Tribulations Sword. Of course, if Beyond the Heavens sect could not avoid destruction in the future, then Chu Yang would come and obtain the unknown artifact that created the Seven Shades congregation grounds. No matter what, he would not let it fall into the hands of others. After stepping outside, Chu Yang could not help but be astonished. Men Jiaoran was still his cold self, standing there, but the sect master had become a masked man. Plus, he was really well covered, only his eyes can be seen. It seemed the sect master's eyes had become a little smaller. They looked like two small slits. When Chu Yang appeared, Men Jiaoran and Wu Yunliang turned to look at the same time. With one glance the two simultaneously felt very puzzled. This Chu Yang and the Chu Yang from before going into Seven Shades congregation grounds were definitely not the same. However, where that difference was, they could not tell. The feeling was surreal. At the same time, Wu Yunliang felt that Chu Yang was curiously checking him out. His face could not help but became red. How was it? The two asked in simultaneously. Chu Yang was in there for 6 hours, making the two feel alarmed. Normally, other generations of disciples would enter Seven Shades congregation grounds and stay no more than 1 hour before exiting. Otherwise, the extreme cold energy would freeze them to death, and when they got out, their whole body would be shaking and covered in white frost, looking half alive and half dead. Unexpectedly, Chu Yang was in there for 6 hours. Plus, he walked out comfortably. The two looked at Chu Yang as if they had just encountered a demon in broad daylight. Chu Yang was confused when he saw that his master and elder martial uncle were staring at him to the point where their eyeballs were about to pop out. He could not help but felt his own face with his hand. If there was a mirror there, Chu Yang would have immediately grabbed it and see if a flower has grown on his face. The two gazes were very weird. Naturally, Chu Yang did not know what it was like when people entered Seven Shades congregation grounds for the first time. Is there something wrong? Is there anything wrong with you? The two asked in unison. No, nothing at all. Chu Yang became even more frustrated. The two looked at each other. Chu Yang could clearly see the two tiny eyes of Wu Yunliang suddenly became big and round. What your elder martial uncle meant was, how is your Seven Shades absolute saint palm? Men Jiaoran asked coolly, after a few dry coughs. I still haven't tried it, but I did manage to absorb quite a bit of cold energy. Caught by surprise, Chu Yang answered, let me try it out. Wu Yunliang and Men Jiaoran went silent. What did you go in there for? Chu Yang activated his internal energy and pulled on the cold energy stored by Nine Tribulations Sword in his Dantian. The stone cave immediately became as cold as a harsh winter day. When his right arm stretched out it became like a silvery ice pole. With one palm, icy air immediately poured out. Chu Yang only used 3%. Wu Yunliang and Men Jiaoran stared in shock. How could this be? This is level 5 of Seven Shades Absolute Saint Palm. This is really unimaginable. When he was using Seven Shades Absolute Saint Palm the other day, he was clearly not even level 1. However, with this powerful cold energy, he seems to be at level 5. This is the level of a master who cultivated for decades. If they realized that Chu Yang only used 3% of the cold energy, What would they think? The two rubbed their eyes simultaneously. Men Zhaoran was shocked by his disciple, and quietly pinched Wu Yunliang's thigh. Wu Yunliang screamed in pain. It was a spot that was bruised earlier. Now that it was pinched, the pain was unbearable. He jumped holding his leg. So it is not a dream. Men Zhaoran laughed. He was extremely happy with his disciple's great accomplishment. You. Wu Yunliang looked angrily at Men Zhaoran. You don't have your own legs. I do. Men Zhaoran answered casually, I just wanted to see if everything was real. But you pinched my thigh. Wu Yunliang yelled in anger. Us two martial brothers are so close. Pinching you or pinching me, what is the difference? Men Zhaoran let out a hearty laugh and walked forward. He patted Chu Yang on the shoulder and praised. Not bad. You have made your master's face grow bigger. Men Zhaoran has always been aloof. It was abnormal to see him joking around in such good spirit. However, in this moment, he was so happy he could not control his emotions. Even though Wu Yunliang was acting angry, he was extremely happy to see his junior martial brother as he was when he first entered the sect. The same lively person was standing next to him. Wu Yunliang also could not help but laugh out loud. Since you were able to absorb so much cold energy like that, I feel a little better about letting you go out there on your own. Men Zhaoran smiled at Chu Yang. When you get to Iron Cloud you should still be very careful and remain low-keyed. You absolutely cannot be overconfident and get involved in the business of others. Especially, not the hero-saving beauty kind of thing. If you could avoid it, then don't do it. You should know that beauty is the source of disaster. Chu Yang solemnly agreed. Men Zhaoran's words were indeed valuable. The hero saves the beauty and the beauty repays the hero with special favors was what young men in Jianghu searched for. However, this was also how many martial artists got killed. Anyone that could bully a beauty in public would be a powerful character. If not himself, then his family would be powerful. Provoking such a person without anyone powerful backing you up, then it would be either death or exile in some distant land. Chu Yang thought to himself, if I were still naive like those overconfident boys and idiotically got involved in other people's business, that would be a strange phenomenon. I still don't understand how you could have absorbed so much cold energy like that. Wu Yunliang jumped in. His swollen eyes have now opened wide as he inspected Chu Yang. You are only a martial warrior. Hack. Martial warrior? Chu Yang asked innocently with his eyes opened wide. What is the matter? Sect Master Wu Yunliang was confounded. His eyes opened so wide, his eyeballs almost fell to the floor. He clearly remembered that a few days ago Chu Yang was only a third-grade martial pupil. How would he have become a martial warrior in a few days? This youth, how could there be so many strange phenomena surrounding him? Moreover, if a first-grade martial warrior absorbed that much cold energy, his meridians would have frozen and shattered to piece. How could he stand there so casually as if it was nothing? After staring at Chu Yang's innocent face for a long time, Wu Yunliang rolled his eyes and gave up. Fine, I will not ask any more. I just hope you can continue your act and get into Iron Cloud. That would be good. This disciple will not fail you. Chu Yang smiled sweetly. His face was full of kindness, honesty, and innocence. Wu Yunliang was at a loss of words. He looked at the kind and honest face for a while, gritted his teeth and said, whoever believe in this face of yours would be an idiot. If they believe in those honest words, surely they would have been sold many times over. Men Zhaoran laughed. After bidding farewell to Wu Yunliang, Men Zhaoran remained silent on the way back to Purple Bamboo Garden. Even though Chu Yang knew that Men Zhaoran was worried about him, he did not know how to deal with it. He wanted to tell his teacher something, but he felt that no matter what he said, he would not be able to dispel Men Zhaoran's fears. Therefore, Chu Yang remained silent as well. As teacher and student walked through the gate of Purple Bamboo Garden, they heard Dantian's ear-piercing screams, "Don't escape. If you keep trying to escape, I will make soup out of you." The two were stunned. They immediately ran in to see Dantian bending down by the pond with water splashing everywhere. Afterward, he suddenly cheered with satisfaction as he jumped up holding a fish over his head. He was overjoyed. Men Zhaoran was shocked, and suddenly ran forward. Chu Yang was also amazed. He could not believe that Dantian was able to catch such a valuable thing. This was a strange fish. Its whole body was black without any scales. Its head was completely round without any eyes. It was a kind of fish without sight. The fish was not all that big, no more than half a pound in weight. Dantian, drop it! Men Ran screamed, you absolutely cannot kill it. Dantian's face was full of confusion as he turned around. When he saw the person screaming was Men Ran, he exclaimed excitedly, Master, Chu Yang, look! Look, I just caught a really strange fish. Dantian was still showing off when the fish suddenly twisted violently and jumped from his hand. It drew a beautiful arch in the air as it was falling back into the pond. Men Ran's reaction was incredibly fast as he jumped and caught the fish in midair. After that, he immediately did a spin and landed back on the ground, without a pause. There was a bucket in Meng Ran's hand. He filled the bucket with water from the pond and placed the fish in it. When everything was done, he splashed water on his face and gave Dantian the bucket. He said with a smile, put this in your room and take care of it carefully. This fish is extremely precious. You must never let it die. Puzzled, Dantian said, Master, what kind of fish is this? It's so small. Not even enough for soup. Soup? You only think about food. Men Ran was annoyed and amused at the same time. He hit Dantian on the head and scolded, this is a priceless treasure. Isn't it wasteful to just eat it? Priceless treasure? Dantian started to understand somewhat and looked at the fish curiously. Looking left and right, it was still just a fish. Even though its appearance was a little weird, it was still just a fish. This is the heavenly Kai-gathering fish. Chu Yang yelled out as he knelt down and looked at the fish carefully. I really can't believe Dantian was able to find such a treasure. Such good luck. Heavenly Kai-gathering fish. Chu Yang gently replied, yes, heavenly Kai-gathering fish. According to ancient stories it was the heavenly three-star clan's treasure. Before the fish matures, eating it will have no special effect. However, if you take care of this fish in your room it could gather the energy of heaven and earth all around it. This will help you multiply the effectiveness of your cultivation. This fish is a treasure that martial artists can only dream of. Exactly. Moreover, the best thing about this fish is when it is near, the energy gathered around it is extremely pure. This is its most valuable characteristic. This fish is the stuff of legends. For many years, no one has seen it. Its description can only be found in books. Dantian, how did you find it? Men Ran asked in surprise. It was just now. I went out to get some water from the pond when the sky suddenly darkened. I could not see anything at all. I was too scared to move, so I just stayed still next to the edge of the pond. After about an hour, it started brighten. That was when I noticed that a muddy area on the water's edge was moving as if something was trying to get out. I watched it carefully. Dantian shrugged. Afterward, I saw the fish came out from the mud. I was curious about its strange appearance, so I grabbed it. The sky suddenly became dark. Men Ran frowned. When the strange phenomenon happened, he and Wu Yunliang was still underground, so he did not know. Hearing this from Dantian, he found the whole thing really odd. The sky became dark for an hour. After that, the fish came out from the mud. Men Ran looked up at the sky. There was a flash of worry. All things relating to the divine clan have not appeared in this world for a very long time. Why did the divine Kai-gathering fish suddenly appeared? And why did the sky suddenly become dark when it was morning? Perhaps there is going a big change? Men Ran thought for a while and finally gave up. But judging from his pinched brows, another worry had been added to his mind. Chu Yang was also confused. He did not know that the moment he obtained the Nine Tribulations Sword tip, this monumental phenomenon happened. Dantian, since you found the fish, you should keep it in your room. Men Ran had recovered his usual unaffected attitude. Yes, Master. Chu Yang and I share the same room, so we can both benefit from this. Ha ha. Dantian was really excited. Starting from today, you and Chu Yang will stay in separate rooms. Men Ran said with a somber face. Why? Dantian asked disappointedly. There are no issues. Chu Yang just has something important to take care of. Then we should put the fish in Chu Yang's room. Dantian pleaded with extreme sadness. Even though I really need it, But Chu Yang is about to leave on a dangerous mission. He needs it more than me. Even if it will help him just a little, it would still be good. Even better, when Chu Yang leaves, he should take it with him so he can absorb energy from heaven and earth whenever he needs. Chu Yang was touched. He turned around and looked at Dantian. A warm emotion surged up inside him. But he did not say anything for a long time. Men Jiaoran already clearly explained what made the heavenly Kai-gathering fish so special. Even though Dantian can be simple at times, he was not dumb. He was not unclear on the matter. However, with a treasure like that, and he adamantly wanted to give it away. He didn't even blink. This was something he wanted, but he still wanted to give it to me. Why? Men Jiaoran asked, his eyes full of admiration. I will be staying with you so there's no danger at all. Dantian said seriously, Chu Yang needs it more than I do. Silly boy. Men Jiaoran raised his hand and patted Dantian's head as he spoke. If you want to help Chu Yang, you must first increase your own strength. That way, when he does need you, you can give him your greatest efforts. Chu Yang will be out and about. Bringing this fish will only lead to danger. Do you understand? Dantian's mouth opened wide. He stuttered, then I will keep it here. Looking somewhat embarrassed, he turned to Chu Yang to explain. Chu Yang, I am not stingy with you, but this is. I understand. Chu Yang squeezed his shoulders and said sincerely, you're a good brother. Dantian, how did you know that I was leaving? Chu Yang asked. These past few days, you have been preparing. You didn't say anything to me. I am not stupid. We grew up together. Whenever you don't tell me about something, it usually is dangerous. Dantian huffed. Plus, these days, Master clearly tried to be as close as possible to you. If I still don't know what's going on, I would be an idiot. Chu Yang laughed. With another huff, Dantian suddenly said sincerely, Chu Yang, I don't know where you are going, but I will definitely work hard to cultivate and help you in the future. Good. I will wait for you. At that time, you and I will fight side by side to change this world. Chu Yang was filled with pride and let out a loud shout. He felt a surge of triumph. With such a good martial brother, how could I not work hard? This time, inverting fate will also change Dantian's fate. A martial brother like this, how could I let him die? For 3 straight days after, Men Jiaoran put all his efforts into training Chu Yang. The two were essentially living in the same room for those 3 days. During this period, anything that Men Jiaoran could think of, he immediately taught it to Chu Yang. Without any rest, he jammed into Chu Yang's head all of his experience in Jianghu, as well as all his tricks and tactics. Even though Chu Yang already knew most of these things, he enjoyed his teacher's attention and care. He listened to Men Jiaoran's words earnestly, taking in all of the warmth in this short time period. Chu Yang never had the chance to enjoy such warm feelings from his teacher in his previous life. Therefore he did not want to miss anything. He knew that if he brushed off Men Jiaoran's words, then he would not say anything, but on the inside, Men Jiaoran would be annoyed. Chu Yang did not want to make his teacher unhappy. 3 days passed by in an instant. On the last day, Chu Yang stepped out of his door, quietly watching the early morning mist lingering. He took in a deep breath, feeling full of nostalgia. Today was the day he must leave this place. With this journey, I don't know when I will be back. I don't even know if I can come back. There was a heavy rain last night and the entirety of Purple Bamboo Garden had been washed. The whole atmosphere was crisp and clean. Since early in the morning, Men Jiaoran had left to pick some herbs in the mountain. Chu Yang knew his teacher was using it as an excuse to avoid the inevitable goodbye. Suddenly, there was a terrified scream from the toilet, followed by Dantian running out. He was covered with a strong stench, and his whole body was filthy beyond words. Chu Yang could not help but be surprised. Why was Dantian holding the heavenly Kai-gathering fish in his hand? Dantian's face was sad and shameful as he ran past Chu Yang. He did not even look at Chu Yang as he ran into his room and plopped the heavenly Kai-gathering fish into the bucket. In the blink of an eye, a naked Dantian ran out. With a wooden bucket, he continually poured water all over his body. It took a few buckets before the stench started to wear off a little. Just now, Chu Yang was feeling sentimental about leaving, But this junior martial brother had made him utterly confused. This crazy guy, what is he doing? Did he just fall into the latrine so early in the morning? Dantian finally cleaned up, and in a flash, ran into his room. At the speed of light, he rolled up the dirty clothes and tossed it out. Afterward, Dantian came out with a funny-looking smile on his face. His face was wrinkled like a bitter gourd, as he let out a long sigh. TLN, bitter gourds are a common ingredient in Asian cuisine. What happened? Chu Yang squinted his eyes. Don't ask. Dantian cried as he answered. Since he got the heavenly kai-gathering fish, Dantian treated it like a treasure. He put it in a corner of his room and carefully took care of it. Every now and then, he would feed it some food such as water plants and so on. However, yesterday, the fish floated with its white belly up in the bucket. Dantian kept touching it, but the fish did not react at all. It continued to float belly up in the bucket without any signs of life. When Dantian picked it up this morning, he discovered that the heavenly kai-gathering fish has become stiff. With a sad sigh, he held the fish and cried. Unexpectedly, he had the urge to go to the bathroom, so he ran with the fish still in hand. He thought since the fish was dead, he might as well just toss it into the latrine. However, after he tossed it in, an unbelievable thing happened. That fiendish fish suddenly came to life and tried to escape with full vigor. Inevitably, Dantian had to jump in to catch the fish. Even worse, last night's heavy rain has made the latrine more full, so Dantian had to take a swim in the toilet. Ha 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 ha. After hearing his story, Chu Yang was clutching his stomach, laughing. Even in his dreams, he could never imagine his junior martial brother could do such an amusing thing. Dantian sighed. With a tragic countenance, he said bitterly, "How would I know that fiendish fish could act dead like that? It was living nicely in the bucket and then it just turned stiff. When I tossed it in the latrine, it became lively again. Does it have to live in stinky places?" Chu Yang rubbed his stomach. With tears all over his face, he said, "You are such a fool. Heavenly kai-gathering fish absorbs the energy from heaven and earth. Once it is done, it becomes immobilized as it digests that energy. It does this before absorbing more. During this time of digestion, martial artists will also make use of some of the energy it absorbed for their cultivation. And you threw it in the latrine." Dantian's mouth opened wide. "Why didn't you say it earlier?" "You're a fool." Chu Yang said, "The heavenly kai-gathering fish can still live if it was buried underground. Why would it die if it was living in a bucket of water? Use your thick head and think. Plus, it lives on the energy of heaven and earth. Feeding it will do nothing. You tossed it in the latrines. You are really something. If others hear about you tossing a precious heavenly kai-gathering fish into the latrines, all the martial artists would probably come and fight to the death with you." Dantian sighed and said, "I am already paying for it. My clothes is gone, and my hands." He raised his hands up to his nose and sniffed. He immediately looked like he was going to retch. "I need my hands to eat." "What to do now?" "You deserve it." Chu Yang teased. He could not help but laughed. Chu Yang went into the room and looked at the fish. The poor heavenly kai-gathering fish was madly swimming back and forth, and every now and then, it jumped up. At the same time, it was spitting a lot of waste material. It seemed that the fish has suffered greatly. "Hurry up and change the water," Chu Yang yelled. Dantian quickly did so. After 7 or 8 times, the heavenly kai-gathering fish calmed down once again. It laid at the bottom with its belly puffing, clearly full of anguish. It seemed that it needed a little more rest. Chu Yang could not believe that he would be laughing to tears upon his departure. It was not until he was a long distance off when he heard the scratchy voice of Dantian yelling after him, "Chu Yang, take care. I will come and find you. I will help you." In that voice, the final sentences were also choked with sadness. Chu Yang paused for a second. Without turning around, he waved his arm. He turned a corner and disappeared from Dantian's sight. "You must not die!" Dantian yelled loudly. Along with that came a torrential downpour of tears. He fell to ground sobbing like a child who just lost his family. He did not know what Chu Yang was doing, but he was aware of the danger involved. Otherwise, their master would not have acted the way he did. Dantian was very worried and sad at the same time. Chu Yang's heart was suffering a little as well, but he forced himself not to turn around. And just like that, He went further and further, step by step. In a distance on a mountain peak, Men Zhaoran's whole body was bathed in morning's light. His eyes squinted as concentrated on his disciples' departing steps. He did not even notice that his hands had formed into tight fists. In his right hand, there was a piece of paper. On it were words written by Chu Yang, with fleeting snow cloud movement technique. You need to bend your body down to reverse your internal flow. Then cultivate from the last step. You can only be successful if you cultivate in reverse. Chu Yang's figure fluttered along the mountain path. On his back, there was only a small travel bag. Leaving beyond the heavens sect all by himself, he was alone on a journey to face an uncertain fate. Chu Yang suddenly became a little melancholy. At that moment, his heart remembered these verses: on this road, there is no fear of mountains of blades and oceans of fire. On this road, Jiang who has 9 chance of death and 1 chance of life. On this road, we laugh at all under the heavens. On this road, straight to the 9 heavens without turning back. These words were from a very popular song from the previous life, called The Road of Jianghu. Mo King Wu used to play music and sing this song. That was why Chu Yang had a deep impression of it. Thinking about it again, Chu Yang could not help but smiled. He muttered, on this road, don't mind the heavens but fight it. On this road, let life escape fate. On this road, I will hold King Wu's hand and laugh at life. On this road, I will certainly overturn the 9 heavens. And like that he softly sung the lyrics he just created in addition to the song as walked out of the territory of Beyond the Heavens sect, leaving the 9 peaks, 1 garden. He did not even look back. This youth with unruly hair covering half of his face. Hidden beneath this hair was an alert pair of eyes that was watching the whole world. His gaze was sharp like a knife. It looked as if it wanted to split the world in half. The rays of early morning light shined on him, stretching his shadow really far. In the middle of the foggy wilderness, his silhouette appeared like out of thin air. Upon him there was an aura of shining crimson blood-red light, as if it was a manifestation of something. On the main road, there was a slowly moving horse-drawn carriage. In the front and back, there were 8 icy-faced riders protecting it. The carriage's driver was an older gentleman with peppered hair. With whip in hand, his eyes looked ahead with an indifferent expression. With each crack of the whip, the horses neighed and the carriage moved forward, leaving a trail of dust behind. Inside the carriage was an old man who was frowning as if he was thinking about something. This old man was praised as the world's top divine doctor of the time, Du Shi King. This time, he was going from Great Zhao Nation into Iron Cloud Nation. Senior Du, in this trip to Iron Cloud Nation, you have only a single mission. It is to use all of your saintly skills to help the Emperor of Iron Cloud Nation live a little bit longer. You must not let him die too early. These words were solemnly said to him by Prime Minister Daiwu Qingru himself. Du Shi King already clearly understood why the Emperor of Iron Cloud had to live a little longer. Currently, Iron Cloud was managed by the prince, but the prince was not the emperor. There were some things he still cannot legitimately carry out. DLN. The phrase was if the name is not right, the words won't ring true or something like that. As long as the emperor stretches out his last dying breath, Iron Cloud Nation would never be fortified. Even if Taibu Ten was overflowed with talent, he would not dare kill his dad and usurp the throne of Iron Cloud. Therefore he would not be able to change the current state of Iron Cloud. If Tai Shi Cheng can live for another month, then Great Zhao Nation would have another month to prepare. It would be best if the old emperor kept his dying breath until everything was ready. When war breaks out, the Prince of Iron Cloud Nation would not have full power and all the weaknesses would be left exposed. However, this task was extremely difficult, and only Du Shi King would know how difficult it was. Du Shi King smiled sadly and then sighed. Years ago, when Tai Shi Cheng was still a young man, he went into the battlefield against Great Zhao Nation. At the time, Daiwu Qingru was only a cabinet member with the responsibility of watching over the military. Yet he has the guts to use gold and silver to hire the best archer to kill Tai Shi Cheng. In the chaos of the battlefield, Tai Shi Cheng was shot by an arrow. Even worse, that arrow was covered in an extremely strong poison. Tai Shi Cheng was blocked by one of his guards. The arrow pierced through the guard's chest and went into Tai Shi Cheng's body, so its potency was weakened. Even so, This poison almost took Tai Shi-cheng's life. It was Dai Wu King Ru who once again used money to buy Du Shi King's service for the nation. This service was healing Tai Shi-cheng's wound. In his whole life, Du Shi King finally did the one unethical thing, healing Tai Shi-cheng's wound, but secretly poisoning him with something of a more chronic nature, one without a cure. As poison slowly ate away Tai Shi-cheng's body, Great Zhao also gradually ate away Iron Cloud Nation all these years. Make him sick, but don't let him die. Even though Iron Cloud could have been taken over, but he did not do it. These past years, Dai Wu King Ru used the conflict with Iron Cloud to repeatedly achieve merits for himself. He never ceased to increase his reputation. He never ceased to gain more power. Even within the military, Dai Wu King Ru's achievements shined brightest. And now, he was below only one and ruled over all. He always achieved merits in battle with Iron Cloud Nation, but he kept Iron Cloud alive with just enough force to fight back. Dai Wu King Ru had turned Iron Cloud into a gold mine for his meritorious achievements. It was not until now that he had started his plan to completely take over Iron Cloud Nation, because he was at the peak of power. With Dai Wu King Ru's current influence, even the Emperor of Great Zhao cannot do anything to him. Dai Wu King Ru was one of those people that used tactics and plots to the point of perfection. At this point, Tai Shi-cheng's body was beyond saving. The only thing that could be done now was to stretch out his dying breath. If it was not for the extremely talented prince, then Iron Cloud would easily become part of Great Zhao Nation. I was the key that started this, and now am I the person to end it. Du Shi King sighed sadly. The road ahead was long. Chu Yang stood alone on the mountain, using the thick forest to cover his body. He quietly watched the riders from a distance. He rubbed his palms gently. Between them was a piece of paper with the following words: Iron Cloud hired the world's top divine doctor, Du Shi King, to come to Iron Cloud Citadel. 9 days from now, they will pass by Evil Tiger Ridge. The paper turned shreds and disintegrated in thin air. Without a pause, he shot through the trees and flew down the mountain. This was a strategy he has planned ahead. Du Shi King was a major key in it. If he wanted to go into Iron Cloud to invert fate, he cannot simply just do so. After arriving there, he has to become valuable to others. More importantly, they would have to trust him. With this trust, he would be able to grasp control. How to achieve all these things in a short period of time? At the slowest, I will have to do in 2 years' time what a normal person would do in a lifetime. Chu Yang's mission cannot be considered easy, but he cannot turn around. Du Shi King was Chu Yang's first move. Whoa, whoa! The horses neighed and came to a stop. Before the carriage was a youth dressed in black. His handsome face was calm with a mix of excitement. His burning gaze was directed at the carriage. Who are you? The 8 guards stopped their horses simultaneously. 3 swords and 5 sabers also came out of their sheaths at the same time. Is the person in the carriage the world's top doctor, the one people called Compassionate sent Du Shi King, Elder Du? The black-outfitted youth's eyes were full of excitement as well as gratitude and reverence as he tried to look inside the carriage. It was as if he did not pay any attention to the glistening swords and sabers that were surrounding him. Who are you? The leader asked as he looked at the youth with a gaze as sharp as that of a falcon, remaining ever vigilante. At the same time, the other guards pointed their weapons in the direction of the youth as they quietly spread out in 4 directions around the carriage. Is it? The youth took a step forward, showing great urgency. That is none of your business. Back off now. The leader said coldly. He did not think that this youth has any malicious intents, but this trip was extremely important. He could not be too careful. If it is indeed Senior Du, please come out and meet me. The youth did not concede. Foolish. The sabers, white as snow, slashed toward him. The youth in black acted as if he was momentarily surprised, and then he suddenly showed signs of anger. His body quickly swerved left and right to avoid the sabers. The sabers were everywhere, but he continued to move safely between them. All of a sudden, his hands became like claws and went forward. One of the sabers fell to the ground. The leader felt his wrist go numb. With his saber almost fall onto the ground as well, he could not help but be surprised. He dismounted and yelled, into formation against the enemy. The other 7 guards dismounted at once and went into battle formation. The weapons seemed as if they have awoken. Wait a minute. Du King yelled from inside the carriage. Immediately after, he calmly said, "Young master, I am Du King. Why do you wish to see me?" When he was done talking, he lifted the curtain and revealed himself. "Senior Du, be careful. This person is of unknown origin and has unclear intentions." Two guards immediately raised their swords and covered the front of the carriage. They were ready for combat. "Sure enough, it is divine Dr. Du." The black-outfitted youth's face flushed with excitement. Without heeding the swords and sabers in front him, he slowly walked forward with his eyes focused on Du King. After 2 steps, this youth came into contact with the leader's saber. The latter had no intention of pulling back and continued to press his saber forward. The youth felt the tingling pain of the saber's stab, and looked down. He smiled in embarrassment and suddenly bowed down in front of Du King. His strange action surprised everyone. "Senior Du, do you remember when you went by here 8 years ago? There was war between the 2 countries at the time and all was in chaos. You benevolently saved a mountain couple. Do you remember?" "Ah." Du King frowned as he tried to think. In his life, he has saved millions. How could he remember everyone? However, he clearly remembered that he really did come by here 8 years ago. TL note, it was really saintly acting skills. Du King was going to treat the Emperor of Iron Cloud Nation. Tai Cheng was in his most dire time. "Senior Du, not only did you save my father's life, you saw that they were poor and did not take 1 penny. And even more, you gave them a little of silver before you left. My family has never forgotten your great kindness." When the black-outfitted youth saw that Du King was still contemplating, his face lit up and his voice became even more excited. "At the time, my parents were not well off. Our family's living situation was grim. We depended entirely on the little of silver Senior Du gave us to keep going. To my family, Senior Du's kindness was as great as heaven and earth." "I see." Du King seemed to vaguely remember a few events like that, but his memory was foggy and he has no deep impression of any of it. It would seem that he only remembered because the other reminded him. He has treated countless people in his lifetime. Even if such a thing was in his memory, it would probably be blurred. However, this type of highway gratitude was indeed rare. At the least, it would make anyone feel very happy. "Yes. My late father reminded me about this matter many times. He said that when I grew up, I must find Senior Du and repay this kindness. Before my father passed away, he lamented over that fact that he could not repay Senior Du's kindness." The black-outfitted youth said in tears, "Thank the heavens, I have finally found Senior Du. Moreover, you have agreed to see me so I could show my gratitude. My late father, in heaven, would certainly be happy to know this." He talked and cried. Within moments, his eyes were red. "It's enough, that I know of the gratitude of your father and you." Du King also could not help but felt a little emotional. He said, "The past is the past. Now." "Oh, your father already pass away?" "Yes, 3 years ago he met with an unfortunate fate when he was hunting tigers in the mountain." The youth in black said hoarsely, "That's regrettable. Your father was heroic, a good man." In truth, Du King currently did not remember who it was, but he pieced together the words of the other person. He figured it was a poor father who was saved by him and had not forgotten that act of kindness. This father had asked his son to find a way to repay the doctor. In fact, even on his deathbed, he did not forget about it. In addition, the words hunting tigers, someone who dared to fight tigers would surely be a heroic figure. Such a person would have surely been a good person. Out of thin air, Du King also felt he has indeed done this good deed. Even though his memory was foggy, this youth was so young and still showed him such gratitude. This surely could not be a lie. Senior Du finally remembers. The youth in black yelled in excitement, "My name is Chu Yang." That year, I also saw Senior Du. How time passed. You are now grown up. Du King rubbed his beard and smiled. He felt that his skepticism was misplaced. Moreover, he felt as if he just met the child of an old friend and immediately sighed. If your father could see your abilities today, he would surely be very happy in heaven. "Yes, I started studying martial arts with my master 6 years ago." Chu Yang said hesitantly. With a look of embarrassment, he stuttered, hack, I finally come face to face with Senior Du today. I also learned that Senior Du is traveling a very long distance to Iron Cloud. Even though my abilities are limited, I would like to help escort Senior Du. I promise to do everything in my power to help you. You don't have to do that, Du Shiking said with some hesitation. Will Senior Du not give me even one chance to repay your kindness? Chu Yang said sadly, I know my skills are lacking, but it is my wish. I also want to fulfill my father's last dying wish. I beseech Senior Du to allow me to do this. After Chu Yang said this, it seemed that no one had any doubts left. The 8 guards also changed their attitude toward Chu Yang. One of the guards vigorously patted Chu Yang's shoulder, smiled and said, Dear boy, your skills are lacking. The 3 of us couldn't stop you. Chu Yang humbly said, that was because you went easy on me. You saw that I was young and did not want to use your full force. Otherwise, I would have been chopped in half already. All of the guards laughed, even though they all knew that they certainly did not go easy on him earlier, but the fact that they did not go all out was true. They quite liked this bright and tactful youth. He did not forget the kindness of others. He persisted on fulfilling his father's dying wish. He was perseverant. Someone who was faithful and filial like this would be welcomed everywhere he went. Well, if you insist on it, you can follow me. Wait until we get to Iron Cloud. I will find you some good opportunities if I have a chance. That would be good. Du Shiking smiled. The 8 guards also smiled happily. With Du Shiking's referral, especially given Iron Cloud's current need of him, nothing would be difficult. It could be said that Du Shiking only needed to open his mouth and this youth would have a bright future. I dare not. I do not have any interest in fame and glory, Chu Yang said quietly, revealing a faint dissatisfaction. Once Senior Du is safe in Iron Cloud, I will be assured and leave. Even though this little person, DLN, I in a humbled manner, as opposed to a great person, has no accomplishments, but those things, ha ha ha. It is best to stay away just to be safe. I want to avoid losing my head unexpectedly. How could Chu Yang not know this was Du Shiking's last test? That was why he put on a show of hating fame and fortune. He also pretended to hide his dissatisfaction with such things. When Chu Yang finished, even the carriage driver's face became a little eased. Du Shiking shook his head and laughed. Good. In that case, follow me. Chu Yang expression went from grief to joy. He jumped up excitedly. Thank you, Senior Du. Meeting such a pure and honest youth, Du Shiking laughed freely. He did not know that this good, kind, honest, filial, faithful guy who was just talking was actually trying to hold down the urge to vomit. DLN, from his act. Du Shiking did not even think that this repayment of kindness, fulfill my father's last dying wish, was all a big lie. Chu Yang did not even know his own origin, let alone the rest. Regardless, the first step in Chu Yang's plan was successful. He had managed to infiltrate this group, and this group had access to the highest level power of Iron Cloud Nation. Chu Yang naturally has additional plans, but this group was the key to everything. As long as Du Shiking's poisoning of Tai Shi Cheng was not uncovered, he would still be of great importance to Tai Budan. DLN, so I was wrong. Chu Yang did know about the poisoning. Once Du Shiking's group has a deep impression of him, this important step could be considered nicely completed. He originally thought to change his appearance, but, after thinking it over, he felt his body would still leave signs that could be discovered. That would not be good. It was easier to just use his true identity to enter Iron Cloud Nation. The identity of an expelled disciple of Beyond the Heavens sect, Chu Yang. After just one day, Chu Yang had become close to the 8 guards. They ate and drank together happily. However, Chu Yang still felt as if there was a sharp gaze constantly watching him. He knew that this gaze belonged to the driver of the carriage. Even though he did not know that person's martial arts skill, but there was something hidden. He was definitely not an ordinary old man. Compared to the martial uncles at Beyond the Heavens sect, he was probably not weaker. He was the real protector of Du Shiking. Only this person was needed to beat 1,000 soldiers and 10,000 horses. DLN, a mighty force. Du Shiking and the 8 guards had no suspicions toward him. It was only the carriage driver that never trusted him completely. 2 days later, the group came into a town in the afternoon. They finally heard a rumor Beyond the Heavens sect has announced that the disciple Chu Yang of Purple Bamboo Garden had misconducted himself and killed his elder martial brother Shikian Shan. Because of this heinous crime, he was expelled from the sect. From now on, he is no longer a disciple of Beyond the Heavens sect. When they heard the news, Du Shiking's group was extremely surprised. Chu Yang. The Chu Yang they are talking about. Is that you? Chu Yang's face fell. It became gloomy and full of unspoken grievances. His eyes became dazed, empty and confused. What happened? How did you get expelled from the sect? Du Shiking frowned. With your personality, such a thing just cannot be. Chu Yang's face became cold. His hands seemed to unconsciously crush a piece of grass in his hand. A little while later, he grinded his teeth and said, "My martial sister. My martial sister. We were engaged." But he did not finish his sentence. In fact, his explanation has no head or tail. But the expression of pain on his face and his trembling hands full of bulging veins already said everything. His appearance was more effective than any verbal explanation. DLN, yep, really someone give him an Oscar. Oh. Everyone, including Du Shiking, sighed. They seemed to understand everything and looked at Chu Yang with sympathetic eyes. This using the sword, DLN, force, to win in love was just all too common. What was worse was it happened between martial brothers. There were really no words for that. In addition to that, Chu Yang showed a miserable face of a person who was in a lot of pain. He held his head with his hands and curled himself up. His 10 fingers grabbed his hair and even managed to pull out some. With just a glance, one could tell that he was in indescribable pain. Well. Du Shiking sighed and said with great emphasis, "This story, no one is allowed to bring it up again." The 8 guards concurred. Even the carriage driver softened his gaze on Chu Yang after this. No wonder this youth appeared to be hopeless and even tried to cover up his martial arts training the other day. "Thank you." Chu Yang took a deep bow and said with a hoarse and painful tone, "I only need to fulfill my late father's dying wish to repay Senior Du's great kindness, then I will immediately disappear from this world. Ha ha, from then on, I will live in solitary in the wilderness. A man of honor, there's no worry about finding a wife." Du Shiking patted his shoulder and consoled him, "You shouldn't think too much of it." Chu Yang nodded with great burden. He then sighed and stopped talking, as if there was an affliction in his heart that was difficult to solve. After this, everyone's attitude toward Chu Yang was much kinder. They seemed to even become more intimate, loving, grateful, filial, humble. Such personality was rare in a youth. Chu Yang's performance had won over these people completely. Even he did not know that a few acts could have instantly gained him that much advantage. The leader of the guards even sighed and patted Chu Yang on the shoulder. "Junior martial brother, you should not be like this anymore. You need to let loose a little. You're a man. You need to widen your horizon. You only need money. There are plenty of pretty girls in the brothels." Chu Yang sadly nodded. He looked up and let out a forced smile that was even worse to look at than his crying face. Even though the others did not say anything, their gaze on Chu Yang had softened much. A victim of injustice, no matter in what time period, always got people's sympathy. The carriage driver did not bother to hang out with everyone else and just sat with the horses. Then with a deep sigh, he nonchalantly got up on his feet and tapped his tobacco pipe, knocking the ashes to the ground. The eyes that could see through everything so clearly seemed to be lost in thought. Meanwhile Chu Yang was sighing on the outside. He knew that he has passed this Du Shiking hurdle. Now the only thing left to worry about was how to proceed once he arrived at Iron Cloud Nation. A bunch of old foxes already well seasoned with politics at Iron Cloud Nation would not be as easy to fool as Du Shiking. Du Shiking lived his whole life as a miracle doctor. It was said any type of illness would have to retreat under his healing hands. However, he was still just a doctor with extraordinary medical skill. People might have respect for him for that. As for social interactions, he was probably not that great. And Chu Yang also knew that a few years from now, Du Shiking's reputation would be ruined because of this trip to Iron Cloud Nation. At that time, for some unknown reasons, the illness of Iron Cloud Nation's king was discovered to be caused by Du Shiking's poisoning a few years back. This caused an uproar over the entire lower 3 heavens. Because of this discovery, Du King was criticized by heroes from all over. After admitting it was done by him, he felt ashamed and committed suicide. A whole life of healing and helping others turned to dust just like that. Perhaps it was a one-time mistake, or perhaps there was some hidden reasons. But what's done is done. Chu Yang did not have any special feelings for Du King, so he did not have any regrets in deceiving and using him. He did not feel any guilt either. But in the past few days Chu Yang did come to realize that this doctor was especially talented and was truly not a bad person. Perhaps when the two countries come into conflicts, each person will have their own master. After all, he was a citizen of Great Zhao. In the end, his skills was only used as a sacrifice, a tool for King Ru to appease the people after he conquered Iron Cloud Nation. As for the 8 guards, after careful observations, Chu Yang was finally sure that none of them belonged to the Golden Horse Rider department. From the look of it, these 8 were essentially martial warriors without any sort of deep cultivation. Additionally, their cultivation was really not all that high. All of them were probably only grade 5 or 6 martial warriors. Such guards were more than enough if they were to encounter small-time robbers, but they would not do if they were to encounter martial masters. It seemed that they were only for show. The only real master was the carriage driver. Maybe Du King was also a martial expert. But, in both the previous life and this, Chu Yang had never heard anyone talk of this divine doctor's martial skills. Chu Yang, how old are you? While Chu Yang was quietly contemplating, the mysterious carriage driver still holding the tobacco pipe came over next to him and asked, 16. Chu Yang was currently afraid to talk about his life because that suffering was all an act. If he talked too much, something might be revealed. What would he do then? 16. It seems that you learned about love very early. The old man revealed a vile smile, showing 2 rows of yellow teeth that glistened under the light of the fire. There was a sudden flash in his gaze that made Chu Yang immediately sense that this man was not coming over for a friendly chat with him. Well, this kind of thing cannot really be clearly explained. Even for myself it still seems hazy right now. Chu Yang sighed and said sadly, in life, there are many things that always seem ordinary, but when they are lost, they become engraved in your heart. Ha ha ha. DLN, thanks to Trent for coming up with ordinary. Basically something that is really calm and tranquil, that is ever present and something you take for granted. Well said. After hearing these words the old man became quiet for a long time. Then with a faint smile, he said, always seeming really ordinary is how they get engraved in your heart. It's not early anymore. You should go to sleep. After the man finished these words, he sat down by the fire and started to poke at the flame without saying another word. The fire danced and shinned on his dull eyes, and, every now and then, those eyes shinned hypnotically. Chu Yang was a little surprised. This was supposed to be the old man's final test for him. Chu Yang was sure of it. But he only said one sentence like that. Why did the old man just let it go? After careful contemplation, Chu Yang sighed. The phrase always staying really quiet is how they get engraved in your heart was not something he said casually. In his previous life, he and Mo King Wu Wen faced many things that would scare the heavens and shock the earth. But it was not until after Mo King Wu died that the faint memories started to surround him. What still stayed with him were the warm and ordinary things. The quiet memories. None of those extraordinary things. People, who doesn't have a youth. People, who doesn't have a youth. Chu Yang was just thinking of this when he suddenly heard the voice of the old man echoed his thought. He could not believe that they were thinking about the same thing. Surprise. He looked over to find the old man looking at him. Their gazes showed a little empathy for each other. Manager Gao, you should stop dreaming about your youth. You have already reached your winter a long time ago, TLN, old. The leader of the guards took a wineskin as he laughed loudly. Then he raised and poured wine into his mouth. The 7 other guards suddenly burst into laughter. Manager Gao Man snorted. Suddenly, the tobacco pipe flared up and a tiny spark flew out. It went straight for the wineskin that was just left the guard's mouth. There was still more than half of the wineskin left. but that little faint spark fell into it and a half-meter-tall flame burst up. The leader of the guard was caught by surprise and lost more than half of his facial hair. A burnt smell momentarily filled the surroundings. The guard could not control himself and roared, "Manager Gao, you're serious?" Manager Go snorted, and slowly walked away with his tobacco pipe. The leader of the guard spat on the ground and angrily watched the manager but did not dare say anything else. Chu Yang's gaze suddenly shrunk. He watched the outline of the manager Gao stooped back as walked away. A sense of fear rose up inside him. His move seemed simple at first glance, but Chu Yang knew that it was extremely difficult. The wineskin must have been 3-4 gins. TL Gin equals a poundish. Even if it were thrown at a torch, the torch would have been extinguished, let alone a little weak spark. DLN, today, I learned that wine is not flammable. It is almost like water. This move required gaze power, precise timing, and power to support it all. But these were not what Chu Yang was most concerned with. What he was most concerned about was, there was clearly fire control power behind it. Without the power to control fire, then it simply cannot be done. However, the power to control fire, this belonged to the divine clan. Could he be from that divine clan? Manager Cao clearly looked like a human. How could he have the divine clan's ability to control fire power? Was there some mystery to this bodyguard of Du Shi King? Moreover, this road was too quiet. While Chu Yang was contemplating, Nine Tribulations Sword spirit in his Dantian fiercely jumped up. A sense of extreme danger rose up inside him. Within moments his hair was standing on ends. His gaze quickly became cold. He did not bother turning his head round to look. His body spun and rolled and immediately shot up high in the air. One moment he was next to the fire, and the next he was behind a tree. The whole process was so extraordinary that those watching would not believe their eyes. Suddenly, there was a sharp whistling sound, and a large boulder, a few meters wide, flew down from above. It was flying straight toward Du Shi King with exact precision. Du Shi King was right in the center of the boulder's lethal target. Manager Gao roared and his old man's body suddenly became powerful like a leopard's. It quickly shot forward. But it could be seen that he would not be in time to save Du Shi King. At that moment, Chu Yang mysteriously appeared next to that large boulder. A sword suddenly appeared in his hand. It shot out like a snake attacking its victim. The sword's point flew like a dragon and stabbed into the side of the boulder. D.E.N.G.G. The stone was originally spinning intensely forward, but this extremely accurate stab into its exact weak spot finally managed to slow down its speed a little. Like a big mountain quietly and suddenly falling on a sharp pivot point, this mysterious scene was difficult to put in words. This large boulder's reaction presented itself in a blink of an eye. It seemed as if Chu Yang's chest was hit by the boulder. Blood sprayed out from his mouth as he rolled back. However, he had managed to buy a little time. It was insignificant, only a blink of an eye. But only that blink of an eye was needed for Manager Gao to, as quick as a bolt of lightning, appear between Du Shi King and the big boulder. He let out an angry roar, followed by an invisible punch. The only thing that could be seen was a bright white flash around his fist. That extremely heavy stone shattered, the little broken pieces poured down like rain. Du Shi King was safe and sound. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Arrows poured down from the mountain's peak. They enveloped the group in all directions. Formation. Face the enemies. The leader of the guards yelled. The 8 systematically and quickly rolled on the ground to their horses. Within a second, each of them was holding a round shield. Even though their reaction was relative fast, one of the guards was shot on his shoulder and calf. The tip of the arrows pierced through the body and brought with them pieces of meat and blood as they quickly disappeared in the dark night. He let out a painful scream. The other guards took 3 shields to cover him. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The sounds started again. Hundreds of arrows rained down like an iron curtain in the air. Thunk thunk. The arrows landed on the ground. The entire area of more than 100 square meters became a giant hedgehog. Manager Gao let out a wail as his body spun like a dark cyclone. With his hands, he caught the dozens of arrows that were still in the air. He tossed them like dozens of black lightning bolts flying back in the opposite direction. He did not even bother to look at the result. Without pause, he grabbed Du Shi King. His body was but a flash as he went over to the carriage and quickly put Du Shiking inside. Thwish, thwish. Sounds rang up. Arrows then immediately appeared with a new target. The carriage. The sheer massive force caused the entire carriage to shake. But none of the arrows could pierce it. This carriage, as it turned out, was not ordinary. In the middle of the mountain, there were the thunk, thunk sounds in the direction that Manager Gao had just sent back some of the arrows. These were the sounds of arrows landing on tree trunks. Every now and then, they were interrupted by short screams. Manager Gao came back within a second. His face was pale. His first reaction was not to advance and kill the enemies. He glanced at Chu Yang. He was the only one there that knew how difficult Chu Yang's previous sword move was. If it was not for that incredible sword move, then this trip would have been disastrous. In terms of timing, position, power, and even the starting point from the beginning. All was perfect beyond belief. That sword move was simply saintly. This youth was only a martial warrior. Even a martial master at peak level could not do anything to such a large falling boulder with just a sword. It was unbelievable that Chu Yang could have used a sword to slow it down. Even though it was only for a blink of an eye, it was able to turn tables. After that incredible move, the ordinary sword was astonishingly undamaged, and the price he paid was only a little blood. This was simply unimaginable. The timing of the enemy's attack was extremely strange. They were currently in the territory of Iron Cloud. Before this, they were unberthed on the road. It was unexpected that they would be attacked here. Moreover, the enemies did not wait until midnight, but chose to initiate early in the evening like this. Everything happened so unexpectedly that it would make people feel as if the attackers were a group of robbers on the run and suddenly happened upon this opportunity. It was as if this was simply an impromptu decision. Even Manager Gao, who has been in Jianghu all his life, was caught unprepared. However, Chu Yang was able to do his sword move, within a moment of chaos. A sword move full of miraculous aura. It was almost like he has practiced this 1,000 times already. Manager Gao was sure that no one would have practiced for such thing. It was not a coincidence, but it was not pre-planned either. When he looked over at the place where Chu Yang has just fallen, he discovered that the kid who just spit out blood and fell to the ground was nowhere to be seen. The 8 guards formed a defensive position and slowly moved toward the carriage and dispersed around to fortify it. Manager Gao wanted to rush in and kill the enemies, but he stopped after some thoughts. Instead he stayed put and directed for the carriage to be slowly moved back away from the forest. The 2 horses that pulled the carriage earlier have already been turned into hedgehogs, and half of the guards' horses have also been killed. Manager Gao's body shook as he stood in place. The only sounds that were heard were repeated thud-thud as each horse's body was tossed on top of each other. In an extremely short period of time, the dead horses became a wall of meat to block them from the view of those in the forest. Afterward, he crossed his arms across his chest. With full alertness, he looked around all 4 directions, and then step by step, he backed away. Their job was to keep Du Shiking safe, not kill the enemies. While he was doing these things, the hidden enemies, surprisingly, did not show the slightest of reaction. The attackers did not make a sound. With the exception of the 2 screams from earlier, they were like mimes. The arrows have stopped. All was completely quiet as if the earlier incident never happened at all. From extremely intense to extremely quiet, there was no buffer in between. When the arrows had quieted, twilight seized this opportunity to blanket its darkness over the ground. Between heaven and earth, there was suddenly filled with a stifling aura. It was so oppressive that one could barely breathe normally. The next time the enemies attack, it would definitely not be a few simple moves like what just happened. This was clear enough to everyone. Who were the enemies? What side did they belong to? Was it Great Zhao, Iron Cloud? Or was it Limitless Nation? Or was it another power? Everything was hidden in a hazy fog. Regardless of which side they belonged to, this was definitely premeditated. It was not until the group moved back by about 10 meters that there was a reaction from the forest. After a series of strange sounds, a sharp whistling sound rose up. A long black shadow like a screaming, angry dragon flew out of the forest and broke through the curtain of the night. It brought with it an overwhelming presence and could not be blocked. In the blink of an eye, it would reach the carriage. The long shadow was like a tyrannical force that leaves everything trembling in its wake. It was only an arrow. However, shockingly, the shaft of this arrow was 3 meters long. It was filled with the smell of death as if it had been shot out from hell. It ripped through the night as it headed for the carriage. The tip of the arrow was heading straight for the central compartment. Without a doubt, it would not spare anyone in the carriage. Siege crossbow. Bastards. The old man roared, and the next moment there appeared a flame on his hand. He fiercely punched and sent the flame forward. Control of fire. Bang. Immediately after contact with the fire, from that gigantic dark arrow that looked like a black dragon, there were sparks flying everywhere. However, that arrow did not stop at all and continued to head straight forward. After that first punch, Manager Gao continued to roar and produced 18 consecutive punches. With every punch there was that same strange firepower fiercely hitting the siege crossbow's arrow. Like a hammering blacksmith, he did not cease his attack on that giant arrow. But the reverse could also be said. That arrow was doing the hammering on Manager Gao's fist. There was an incredible radiance spread out in all 4 directions in the sky. In the dark night, there seemed as if thousands of fireworks were blooming brightly. Little wood pieces fell all around him. With each punch, Manager Gao roared loudly. With 18 punches, his 18 roars filled the whole surrounding. When the arrow was shot out from the siege crossbow, it was 3 meters long. It was now only 1 meter. Manager Gao was shocked. He had continuously retreated a few steps back and found himself against the carriage. The siege crossbow's arrow that was right in front of him finally lost its momentum, and dropped heavily on the ground. The air was filled with the smell of burnt things and smoke. Manager Gao's chest was rising and falling rapidly as he looked fiercely at the forest. A second later, he spit out some fresh blood. As the blood came out, his face also turned red. After a few moments, his normal color returned and his breathing normalized. He never would have thought that the enemies would set up a siege crossbow in a place like this, because he was caught by surprise. No matter what his cultivation level was, he still took on some internal injuries when he dealt with the siege crossbow's arrow. The siege crossbow was a military weapon used to break down citadels' gates. The arrows were more than 3 meters long. They were made from black iron tree trunks with sharp and pointy metal tips. These arrows were normally soaked in oil vats and only taken out right before use. To shoot each arrow, there had to be at least 100 strong men working in a concerted effort to pull the giant bow. Only then they would have the ability to release this powerful arrow that can determine the outcomes of wars. Siege crossbows were incredibly powerful. Once they were used, citadels would undoubtedly be broken. After a moment of silence, a voice rang out from the forest. It was filled with praise. "You really live up to the title Fire Saber Great Master. You're truly amazing. One siege crossbow arrow can bring down a citadel gate, but you single-handedly brought it down. Much respect. Much respect." With that voice, 8 people simultaneously appeared from different locations. They all wore black masks, only their cold, sharp eyes were visible. Step by step, they walked toward Manager Gao. Manager Gao's eyes narrowed as he asked in a low voice, "Who are you people?" One of them grunted coldly and said, "Rumors has it that Fire Saber Great Master, Gao Weicheng, had retired from Jianghu." I did not think it was a lie. A Saber Great Master working as someone's bodyguard, accepting the easy life of a lapdog. I really envy you, Gao Weicheng. Where is your saber? Manager Gao was startled. His body suddenly perked forward. His slightly hunched posture suddenly became straight and tall. His eyes brightened as he spoke coldly. "If you already knew I am Gao Weicheng, then, surely, you are not a no-name either. Let me see who you are." He yelled out the sentence, "Let me see who you are." His roar was loud enough to shake the whole forest. The other person did not budge even a little. He stood there and said nonchalantly, "Gao Weicheng, if you take Du Shi King and turn around, we will not pursue you any further. Otherwise, today will be the day you, Fire Saber Great Master, dies." Manager Gao tilted his head up and laughed. "Such bravado. Let's see how you people plan to hold this old man." One of the black outfitted person mocked, "Fire Saber Great Master? Is that so great?" Then he suddenly yelled, "Everyone forward." 6 people to Gao Weicheng, the other 2 killed Du Shi King. The 8 complied and simultaneously unsheathed their weapons and advanced. Manager Go saw early on that these people did not necessarily have high cultivation level, but they were all about equal. Probably martial master level. Even though their cultivation was a long stride below him, their current simultaneous advancement made them a powerful force. You are Ironclad Nation's military? Seeing the enemy's incredible momentum, one that martial artists of higher level could not replicate, Manager Gao was shocked. The enemies did not bother to reply. 6 sabers simultaneous slashed in the blink of an eye. Manager Gao yelled, "Protect the carriage." At the same time, his wrist quickly turned out. A great saber with a dark red color appeared. It drew a screen in the air as thick as rain, only, this rain screen was filled flames bursting everywhere. Deng, deng, deng. The sounds of weapons clashing rang without end. In a flash, there were 7 people in fierce combat without any reservations. The other 2 did not bother to pay any attention to that battle. At this same time, they rushed to the carriage with swords in hands. If there were no constraints, Manager Gao would have taken his time and killed each of these guys one by one. However, it is impossible to kill them all at once. Furthermore, after his dealing with the siege crossbow's arrow, he had suffered from internal injuries, rendering him even more powerless. At this moment, 6 enemies surrounded him. The 8 guards did not have the ability to deal with the other 2. Manager Gao could not help but feel anxious. Since the moment the siege crossbow made that shot, Chu Yang disappeared, without a trace, into the forest. He was like a wolf returning to the grassland, his home territory. After that first weapon struck, he immediately turned and shot himself back. He spit out a clump of fresh blood to help alleviate the shock to his internal system. Immediately after, his 2 legs stomped hard on the ground, creating a cloud of dust. Using the low-lying cloud of dust to cover his body, he stayed low to ground and moved like a snake. With a few movements, he was now hidden behind a large tree. Finally, his body moved in a mysterious manner. From the ground he climbed up to the treetop. Using leaves as cover, he continued to jump through more than a dozen trees and disappeared into the forest. The movements were smooth like a breeze weaving through the forest. Chu Yang's body was so agile that the leaves did not even move. Even if the best of assassins were to see Chu Yang's actions at this time, their eyes would probably drop out of their sockets. This was the best route that Chu Yang had chosen early on. In fact, he had planned it long before the attack. No matter where the resting place was, it was his habit to plan beforehand a route to retreat and a route to attack. Where he was standing now was between these 2 paths. Attacking meant the possibility for merits. Retreating meant being able to keep his life. Such an ambush would naturally mean there was a large force. From the rain of arrows earlier, it was enough to know that a passive defense technique would not be good. Even if the enemies were weakened, they could kill him. The only way to solve the situation was to start an offensive. Du Shi King cannot die. Currently, Du Shi King had Manager Gao's protection. At least for the time being, he should be okay. Chu Yang was not worried about him even for a little. That was why after that one key sword movement, he immediately took his next action. Bring the killing into the forest. Whoever was in that forest, they were the true source of this ambush.